HeyMax and the Philippines, the complete strategic analysis. This is an independent analysis of HeyMax and the Philippines, researched in August 2026 from public sources. It is the third volume of a trilogy. Hong Kong asked whether a Singapore loyalty startup could win the most concentrated miles market in Asia. Singapore asked whether the home market that made it could keep it. This volume asks the question that comes before either one: should HeyMax enter the Philippines at all? That question has a property the earlier ones did not. In Hong Kong and Singapore, there was something to assess. In the Philippines, there is, on the surface, nothing. No launch, no announcement, no roadmap mention. Part of this volume's work was establishing what that nothing actually contains, and the answer turned out to be more interesting than either a launch or a void. A live transfer partnership scoped to other markets, a quiet hiring pattern in Manila, a founder connection nobody has talked about. Absences, documented precisely, are evidence too. Same ground rules as before. Every load-bearing claim traces to a source. Company claims are labeled as company claims. Estimates are labeled as estimates, and this volume leans on estimates more than its predecessors, so I flag them louder. And because the honest answer to an entry question can be, not yet, I have not bent the evidence toward a more exciting verdict. 20 chapters. At the end, a verdict on the Philippines, a verdict on the trilogy, and the specific evidence that would prove me wrong. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Philippines is not Singapore or Hong Kong. The Philippines inverts every assumption the first two volumes of this series ran on. Wallets over cards, rebates over aspiration, instant over deferred, and a genuinely miles-viable public of perhaps 1 to 3 million people inside a nation of 115 million. Any entry thesis that ignores that inversion dies on contact with the first income table. That is my core claim, and it sets the shape of everything that follows. The Hong Kong volume asked whether HeyMax could win a rich, miles-obsessed market it had just entered. The Singapore volume asked whether it could keep the market it was born in. This volume sits one step earlier in the decision tree at the question that precedes both: should HeyMax enter at all? I want to say at the outset that not now is a legitimate verdict, and I will treat it as live throughout. Intellectual honesty beats narrative momentum, and no market punishes momentum thinking faster than one that looks, from a Singapore office, like the next obvious dot on the map. Here is the working. Start with the card base, because in the first two volumes, the credit card was the unit of analysis I never had to justify. The Credit Card Association of the Philippines counted about 18.5 million credit cards in force at the end of 2025. That is up 12% year-on-year, and up from 13.9 million in early 2024. But that is cards, not people. Miles-grade customers hold 3 or 4 each, so my estimate, labeled as such, is 8 to 12 million unique cardholders, which puts adult penetration somewhere around 10 to 15%, among the weakest in ASEAN. Now the throughput. Total Philippine card payment value ran to about 3.5 trillion pesos in 2024, and global data forecasts 4.2 trillion for 2025. Convert that, and you get a striking sentence: my arithmetic. A country of 115 million people pushes roughly the same annual card volume through its terminals as the city-state of 6 million I covered last volume. Spread it across the cards in force, and each card carries perhaps 110,000 to 135,000 pesos a year, my estimate again. That is roughly 1/10 of what a Singapore miles chaser roots through plastic without thinking about it. The engine that funds a miles economy runs here at 1/10 of the compression. Now set the wallet beside the card, because this is the reversal that defines the country. GCash claims about 94 million registered users. I apply the skeptical hygiene that headline demands. A figure sourced from investor relations puts monthly actives at 39.1 million, and the honest read lives in the gap between registration and use. But even the honest read is enormous. 5 registered wallets for every credit card in the country, with actives alone at double the entire card base. And the demographics tell you who the wallet republic is. By Globe's own account, 92% of GCash users come from low-income brackets, and 78% live outside Metro Manila. This is not a rewards optimizer population. It is the mass market that cards never reached, running 17 trillion pesos of transaction value through an app that now earns 17.2 billion pesos in net income, carries a $5 billion valuation, and is pointed at an IPO. In Hong Kong, the daily spend rail was a $1 trillion card habit. In Singapore, it was the most generous card market on earth. In the Philippines, the daily spend rail is a wallet whose typical user is precisely the person Miles cannot serve. Why can't Miles serve them? Because the arithmetic is brutal, and Filipinos have already done it. The Philippine Institute for Development Studies classifies 58.4% of Filipinos as low income, and the National Income Surveys put average family income at about 353,000 pesos a year. A typical Philippine Miles card earns a mile for every 30 to 50 pesos of spend. The full card game gets Chapter 3, so a modest 25,000-mile regional award implies 750,000 pesos to 1.25 pesos of card spend. Read that against the income line. 2 to 3.5 years of the average family's entire income routed through a credit card for one economy seat. A newcomer to the Philippine credit card subreddit ran exactly this math and posted the conclusion with visible disbelief: 750,000 pesos of spend for one Hong Kong flight. Nobody corrected the figure, because the figure is correct. For the majority of this country, cashback and 1 peso promo fares are not a failure of aspiration. They are the rational optimum, and any strategy document that treats the rebate preference as ignorance to be educated away has misread the ground. What sharpens the point is that the Philippines' own optimizer culture agrees. That subreddit, roughly 230,000 members at an August 2025 snapshot, with trackers citing figures up to 280,000. The sources differ, and I flag it, is the densest concentration of card literacy in the country, and its canon on miles versus cashback is settled. Miles win mathematically. The community's own numbers put Miles cards at around 2.2 to 4% of spend returned, against 0.1 to 0.7% for typical cashback. And yet the same canon concludes, in its own words, that miles are really more for the heavier spender or someone patient enough. Contrast Singapore, where the community's canonical numbers are confident buy below and redeem above thresholds, published and enforced like an exchange rate. Here, the most miles-literate people in the nation have examined the product category HeyMax sells and attached a warning label to it, for the heavy and the patient only. And yet, and this is what makes the Philippines interesting rather than merely small, it is one of the most travel-hungry nations on the planet. Manila's main airport handled a record 52 million passengers in 2025. Personal remittances reached $39.6 billion the same year. Wired home by the 2.16 million overseas Filipino workers the Statistics Authority counted formally in 2023. Those workers are themselves the measurable core of a diaspora commonly estimated above 10 million, a stock figure I pass along with less confidence than the survey number. Japan visa demand in January 2026 was being described as unprecedented. The desire to fly is arguably more structural here than in Singapore, because for millions of families, a flight is not leisure. It is reunion. The inversion is not about demand for travel. It is about the mechanism. This country reaches the sky through peso fares, remittances, and 13th-month pay, not through points. So who is actually addressable? My estimate, stated plainly, 1 to 3 million affluent, multi-card, travel-heavy Filipinos. That headcount is not embarrassing. It is the same order of magnitude as Singapore's affluent base. But each member of it spends about 1/10 as much on cards, earns at materially worse rates, and redeems into weaker programs, as the next chapter documents. The Philippines is two countries wearing one flag. a rebate republic of 100+ million, whose loyalty life is coins, vouchers, and Paizo fares, and a Miles country of 1 to 3 million, thinly served and growing. Plus a third, stranger constituency, the 10 million-strong diaspora, earning in foreign currencies on foreign cards, which will keep resurfacing through this volume in ways I did not expect when I began the research. Hold the two earlier playbooks against this ground and watch them fail. The Singapore playbook, stack an incremental earning layer on top of the world's most generous card market, finds nothing generous to stack on. The Hong Kong playbook, arbitrage a stingy earn environment against strong, internationally liquid airline currencies, finds the stinginess but not the strength. The flag carrier's program is scarred, and the largest domestic carrier shut its program down entirely, which is Chapter 2's story. Even the meta-market inverts. There is no Mile Lion of the Philippines, no professional Miles Authority class at all, for reasons that turn out to be economic rather than cultural. Every assumption has to be rebuilt from Philippine facts, and the growth numbers say the rebuild is worth doing carefully rather than not at all. Cards are compounding at 12% a year. Card receivables at the central bank are up roughly 30% year on year to 1.23 trillion pesos by March 2026. Global Data Project's card spend to reach 7.3 trillion pesos by 2029, nearly double the 2025 figure. The inversion is real, and it is eroding at a measurable rate. Erosion, however, is not arrival. What does this mean for HeyMax? 3 things. First, denominator discipline. The Philippines is a 1 to 3 million person market wearing a 115 million person costume, and every model, addressable market, acquisition cost, payback period must be sized to the costume's contents, not its silhouette. The mass rails, GCash above all, are distribution to rent, never a population to convert. Second, nothing transplants. A product tuned to Singapore's assumptions, lavish earn to aggregate, transfer-literate users, a beloved anchor currency, would land here as a foreign object. Whatever enters must be translated into a wallet-first, rebate-first, instant-first grammar, and the later chapters test what survives that translation. Third, timing is the strategy variable, not a scheduling detail. The ground is compounding toward Miles viability on a visible clock, which means the honest question is not whether the Philippines will ever be a Miles market, but whether HeyMax should arrive before, alongside, or after that arrival, and in what shape. That question, not conquest, is the spine of this volume. Chapter 2, The Weak-Incumbent Inversion. The first 2 volumes of this series were, underneath everything, studies of strong airline loyalty programs and the ecosystems that grew up around them. The Philippines hands me the opposite brief. A flag carrier program with a scarred reputation and no published membership number, and a largest domestic carrier that shut its program down entirely. This Weak-Incumbent inversion, running against a countdown clock labeled oneworld 2027, changes the meaning of every strategic verb in the entry decision, including the verb to wait. That is my core claim. An aggregator like HeyMax does not really sell miles. It sells a bridge into somebody else's aspirational currency. In Hong Kong, the far side of the bridge was Asia Miles and Avios, currencies liquid enough to make a stingy earn environment worth arbitraging. In Singapore, it was KrisFlyer, the national savings bond of the emotional economy, so strong that HeyMax's lack of a KrisFlyer partnership was that volume's defining absence. So the first Philippine question is brutally simple. What stands on the far side of the bridge here? Here is the working. Mabuhay Miles first, and first the rap sheet, because the community keeps it current. Mabuhay Miles is the program of Philippine Airlines, PAL, and its award tickets carry fuel surcharges that can run to roughly $250. The community's framing is the damning part. That surcharge, as one poster noted, is the cost of a round-trip ticket on other low-cost airlines. Award availability is scarce, crediting is slow, and the program has a history of devaluing without notice. Flexible award prices jumped as much as 186% in one repricing. PAL publishes no member count. I looked, and I record the absence as an absence, rather than inventing a figure. The most damning evidence, though, is where the Philippines' own optimizers send their value. As one community member advises, translated from the Taglish, the points are worth more if they go to KrisFlyer. That is the flag carrier's natural constituency quietly defecting to a foreign program. When your best customers arbitrage away from you inside your own home market, your program is not merely unloved. It is being marked to market, and it is failing the mark. Yet PAL the airline is nothing like PAL the program. The company earned roughly $160 million of net income in 2025, its fourth consecutive profitable year, and carried 16.3 million passengers. That combination, healthy airline and weak program, is rarer and more interesting than it sounds, because it means the weakness is a fixable choice rather than a symptom of distress. And PAL has visibly started fixing it. The ledger of the fix is worth dating precisely. In August 2024, PAL announced the migration of Mabuhay Miles onto Amadeus loyalty technology, explicitly to support a broader partner network. At the end of that same month, it upgraded its partnership with SM Advantage, the country's largest retail loyalty program. In early 2025 came the Maya tie-up, linking the program to a digital bank. In May 2025, an Alaska Airlines partnership aimed squarely at the Filipino-American diaspora corridor. In October 2025, a renewed co-brand card with PNB. And above all of it hangs the clock. PAL joins the oneworld alliance in 2027, which forces Mabuhay Miles up to alliance standard, alliance-wide earn and redemption, hundreds of lounges on a public deadline. My skeptical note, because the coverage sometimes overstates this, what the evidence supports is an incremental modernization, not a relaunch. There is no new earn table, no rebrand event, no unveiling. Anyone selling a new Mabuhay Miles narrative is ahead of the record, but the direction is real, and so is the deadline. One detail from May 2026 captures the current state of play better than any ledger. Since then, a passenger flying on Philippine Airlines' own aircraft has been able to credit the flight to Qatar Airways Avios program. Even PAL's own metal now feeds a foreign currency. I read that two ways. As a symptom, weak home programs get harvested by strong foreign ones on their own routes with their own passengers. And as a signal about the customer base, the Philippine flyers sophisticated enough to make that election already think in multiple currencies, precisely the mental model an aggregator depends on, already present in the thin segment that matters. Now Cebu Pacific, the Null incumbent. In August 2021, the airline announced it was killing GetGo, its standalone frequent flyer program, and by 2022 it had migrated the members into Go Rewards, the Robinsons Retail Coalition, at 1-to-1, 1 point equal to 1 peso. Absorb what that means. The country's largest domestic carrier, which flew about 20 million passengers in the first 9 months of 2025 alone, has no miles program at all, by deliberate choice. And the choice was not made from weakness. Cebu Pacific's net income doubled to 12.3 billion pesos, and it has ordered up to 152 aircraft of the A321neo family, roughly $24 billion at list prices, the largest aircraft order in Philippine aviation history. An airline betting $24 billion on Philippine volume looked at its own market and concluded that a peso-pegged grocery coalition retains its customers better than an aspirational mile ever would. 30 years of peso sales explain the conclusion. 1 peso base fares at midnight have trained 2 behaviors at once: deal camping, which a later chapter argues is convertible, and a mental anchor price for flying that sits near zero. When the patient can buy a Manila to Cebu seat for 1 peso plus fees, a free flight after 750,000 pesos of card spend is not a pitch. It is a punchline. What does the inversion mean analytically? Weak incumbents cut both ways, and I want both edges on the table. The opportunity edge, no beloved local champion occupies the credibility high ground. In Singapore, any challenger fights Flyer's grip on the national imagination. Here there is nothing equivalent to dislodge. The affection simply does not exist, and the vacancy is real. The problem edge: an aggregator has nothing strong to plug into locally. A Philippine HeyMax at 2026 program quality would mostly be selling bridges into foreign currencies, Flyer, Avios, Asia Miles, which is legible to the well-traveled sliver of the 1 to 3 million segment and invisible to everyone else. In Hong Kong, the incumbent strength made the aggregator's case for it. Here, their weakness unmakes it today. Which is where the clock changes everything, and why I said waiting means something different in this volume. In Singapore, waiting meant erosion. Every quarter brought another cap cut, another devaluation, a market repricing itself downward. In the Philippines, waiting means the redemption anchor appreciates on someone else's capital expenditure. Amadeus is PAL's money. Alliance compliance is PAL's project. Alaska reciprocity is already live. A Mabuhay Mile in 2028 will almost certainly be worth more and be redeemable more widely than a Mabuhay Mile in 2026. This is the rare market where patience has positive carry on the redemption side, but the carry runs negative on the competitive side because the same clock rings for everyone. Maya is wiring itself into Mabuhay now, as Chapter 4 documents, and access to PAL's partner roster is likely cheapest in the pre-oneworld window, before Alliance membership raises the program's standards and its self-regard. One footnote in advance, because it belongs to this chapter's logic even though the full record comes later. HeyMax already holds a live pipe into Mabuhay Miles. Since roughly late May 2026, Max Miles transfer 1-to-1 with a minimum of 1,000 miles. But PAL scopes the partnership in its own words, exclusively, it says, for its members in Hong Kong and Singapore, and its head of loyalty framed it as serving Southeast Asia-based members. It is a diaspora corridor, not a Philippine entry. AirAsia Rewards is likewise a partner. Cebu Pacific is not. Chapter 9 dissects all of it. The point here is narrower. The relationship exists, it predates any entry decision, and it was built along exactly the pre-oneworld path this chapter describes. What does this mean for HeyMax? 4 beats. First, the far side of the bridge is being rebuilt by PAL on a public deadline, so the cheap move is to deepen the Mabuhay relationship now, in the pre-oneworld window, while a partner slot costs relationship capital rather than alliance-grade fees. Second, Cebu Pacific's abandoned seat is a standing structural fact. 20 million passengers a year attached to no miles program anywhere on Earth, and it doubles as both the market's biggest opening and its bluntest warning about what the mass market actually wants. Third, sequencing. Do not lead with foreign currency bridges in a market whose masses have never held a mile. The local anchor must strengthen first, and it is strengthening on schedule. Fourth, waiting is not neutral. The redemption side appreciates while the competitive side deteriorates, which converts the entry question into a crossing problem. Arrive after the anchor is worth feeding, but before Maya owns the feed. That crossing point, not any calendar year, is the date this volume is hunting. Chapter 3, The Card Game Philippine Rules. The Philippine card game pays Hong Kong grade earn rates on a spending base 1/10 of Singapore's, through conversion pipes that read like customs paperwork. And yet the whole thin apparatus is compounding at 12% a year, which makes it the rare market that is unviable today and arithmetically headed toward viable, on a schedule you can almost write down. That is my core claim, and it is the hinge on which this volume's timing argument swings. Chapter 1 established who holds the cards. This chapter is about what the cards actually pay, how the points move, and what the growth curve does to both. Here is the working. Start with the rates, named. The best earn in the market is roughly a mile for every 17 pesos of spend, and it is available only on travel and foreign currency purchases, through the multiplier tiers of Union Bank's Miles, Plus Card, and Metrobank's Travel Platinum. Step off the travel category, and the floor drops fast. Typical general spend earns a mile for every 30 to 50 pesos across the major issuers, and the worst Miles-branded product, I found pays a mile for roughly every 116 pesos, a rate I struggle to describe as a rewards program rather than a rounding error. Now the comparison the chapter title promises, with my own conversion labeled as such. Hong Kong's famously grudging general earn, a mile for every 5 to 8 Hong Kong dollars, converts to roughly the same peso band as the Philippine mainstream. The Philippines pays Hong Kong rates, but Hong Kong pays them to a population with several times the income and roughly 10 times the card throughput. The Hong Kong volumes complaint was underpayment against a torrent of spend. The Philippine version is underpayment against a trickle. And notice the design tell buried in the multiplier structure. The only generous rates sit on travel and foreign currency spend, which means Philippine banks award miles primarily to people who already travel. The category that needs aspiration least is the one that earns it fastest. Now the value side, because an earn rate means nothing until you price the mile. My estimate, labeled as such. A Philippine relevant mile is worth roughly 80 centavos to 1 peso and 20 centavos, depending on the redemption. Run the division, and typical general spend returns something between about 1.6 and 4% of spend at the extremes, clustering around 2 to 3% for a well-chosen card, which is why the community canon from Chapter 1 concedes that miles beat cashback mathematically, even here. The problem is not the percentage. It is the accumulation horizon. At 110,000 to 135,000 pesos of annual spend per card, my estimate from Chapter 1, a single card holder earning a mile per 40 pesos banks roughly 3,000 miles a year. A 25,000-mile award sits 8 years out. The Singapore optimizer closes that loop in months. The Philippine cardholder is being asked to save for a flight the way one saves for a roof. The rates are Hong Kong's, the patience required is nobody else's. The base underneath those rates I established in Chapter 1, but the card game view adds the trajectory. The Credit Card Association of the Philippines, CCAP, counted 18.5 million cards at the end of 2025, growing 12% a year from 13.9 million in early 2024. Unique holders are my estimated 8 to 12 million. Penetration, at 10 to 15% of adults, remains among the weakest in ASEAN. But central bank card receivables hit about 1.23 trillion pesos by March 2026, up roughly 30% year-on-year, credit in genuine takeoff. And Global Data's forecast has total card spend nearly doubling, from 4.2 trillion pesos in 2025 to 7.3 trillion by 2029. Every one of those curves bends toward a bigger miles economy. None of them has arrived yet. Then there are the pipes, which is where a points aggregator's eye goes first, and mine watered. Nearly every major issuer converts its points into exactly one airline destination, Mabuhay Miles, at ratios of 5 points to a mile or 8 to 1, with crediting that takes around 7 days. BPI, Metrobank, RCBC, Security Bank, AUB, PNB, and BDO's American Express line all run some version of this single-lane road. Set that against Singapore, where any mainstream bank publishes a transfer menu a dozen airlines deep, and the community treats a slow transfer as a scandal. The Philippine conversion infrastructure is a set of one-destination toll roads with week-long queues, priced in ratios that read like tariffs. 2 exceptions matter and will matter more. Union Bank runs the closest thing to a real menu, conversions to AirAsia's program, to Asia Miles, and to Crease Flyer, and holds the Cebu Pacific co-brand besides. And East West holds the country's only Crease Flyer co-brand card, upgraded in September 2024. That is a niche product, but it tells you a Philippine bank looked at the defection pattern from Chapter 2, the community's advice, translated from the Taglish, that the points are worth more if they go to Crease Flyer, and built a product for it. The devaluation culture has arrived here too, before the generosity ever did. BDO, the country's largest bank, is cutting its American Express points to miles conversion to 2 to 1 from the 1st of July 2026, a halving announced into a market where the earn was already thin. Singapore's nerf hammer at least fell on abundance. The Philippine version falls on scarcity, and every cut pushes the marginal cardholder back toward the cashback and installment offers the banks would rather market anyway. I note the asymmetry honestly. I found no countervailing enrichment war, no bank competing upward on earn rates. The Philippine card game in 2026 is quietly getting worse for Miles, even as it gets bigger. And yet the structure holds one quiet advantage that neither of my previous markets can match. There is no interchange cap. Philippine merchant discount rates run at roughly 1.5 to 3.5%, richer per peso of spend than Singapore's compressed economics, and far richer than Australia's regulator-capped rails, which the HeyMax expansion record knows painfully well. That margin is the raw material of every rewards arms race ever fought. When Philippine banks finally decide to compete for the affluent segment on earn rather than on fee waivers, the fuel is already in the tank. The war has not started. The tank is full. That combination is worth more to a 2028 entrant than to a 2026 one, but it is worth something to anyone deciding whether the market can ever pay for aspiration. It can, it simply doesn't yet. So which issuers matter, if and when entry comes? The first wave logic writes itself from the evidence. Union Bank leads. It already runs the only multi-airline transfer culture in the country, holds the Cebu Pacific co-brand, and operates with the most digital native posture of the majors, the bank most likely to understand an API-fed Miles layer rather than fear it. RCBC and Security Bank follow as travel-forward issuers without entrenched single airline loyalties. East West earns its slot through the KrisFlyer co-brand, proof of appetite for foreign currency travel rewards, the exact instinct an aggregator needs in a partner. And the explicit deprioritization, BDO, the biggest prize by book size, is mid-devaluation. A bank cutting rewards costs is the wrong counterparty for a rewards pitch, however large its card base. One more economic tell rounds out the picture. Philippine banks pay referral bounties of about 4,000 pesos per approved card at Union Bank and up to 1,800 pesos at RCBC against the several hundred Singapore dollar bounties common up north, my comparison, labeled as an estimate. Thin bounties are why no professional Miles blogger class exists here, and they also cap what an affiliate-funded aggregator can earn per acquisition today. The application economics leg of HeyMax's model exists in the Philippines, but at perhaps a tenth the Singapore payout. What does this mean for HeyMax? 3 conclusions, 1 discipline. First, the card game as it stands in 2026 cannot feed the model. The earn is Hong Kong thin, the spend is a tenth of Singapore's, the pipes are single destination and slow, and the bounties are small. Every revenue assumption imported from home fails by roughly an order of magnitude. Second, the same game is compounding toward viability. 12% card growth, 30% receivables growth, spend nearly doubling by 2029, and uncapped interchange waiting to fund a future rewards war. The timing checklist this volume builds toward puts the bar at 3 to 5 million affluent cardholders, against today's 1 to 3. On current curves, a standalone consumer entry pencils out somewhere in 2028 to 2030, and I flag that as a scenario, not a forecast. Third, the first wave map is already legible: Union Bank, RCBC, Security Bank, East West, and not BDO, which means pre-positioning work can start years before a launch does. The discipline is to watch the leading indicators rather than the calendar. CCAP's quarterly card count, the receivables curve, and above all the conversion menus. The day a second Philippine bank publishes a real multi-airline transfer menu, the card game will have changed rules. And that, more than any internal roadmap date, is the signal that the Philippine hand is worth playing. Chapter 4. The Wallet Republic and Maya's Head Start. In the Philippines, the loyalty infrastructure that matters is not the card networks at all. It is the 2 e-wallets, and inside the smaller of them, a native Miles ecosystem is already under construction, which makes Maya's Head Start the single most dangerous incumbent trajectory a would-be entrant faces. That is my core claim, and it forces a reframing I resisted for longer than I should have. A Philippine strategy for HeyMax is not a card strategy with wallet garnish. It is a wallet strategy with cards attached. The previous 2 volumes never needed this chapter. Singapore's daily spend rail was the credit card itself, so generously fed that no wallet could displace it. Hong Kong's was Octopus, a transit card that grew into a payments habit. The Philippines leapfrogged plastic entirely, and the leapfrog decided where loyalty lives. Here is the working. GCash first at the honest scale. The headline is about 94 million registered users. The monthly active figure, sourced from investor relations, is 39.1 million, and as I argued in Chapter 1, the truth of the platform lives in the gap between those numbers. But apply every discount and GCash is still the national financial rail. 17 trillion pesos of gross transaction value, 17.2 billion pesos of net income, a $5 billion valuation, an IPO in the wings, and a user base that is 92% low income and 78% outside Metro Manila, by Globe's own description. The central bank's QR standard and a decade of digitalization policy let the wallet reach the mass market that cards never did, and daily spend followed the reach. What GCash does with that position loyalty-wise is instructive in its modesty. Voucher-grade rewards, merchant deals, discounts, a retention feature, not a product. There is no aspirational currency anywhere in the machine. The largest concentration of daily Filipino spending behavior on Earth runs on a rewards layer a Singapore optimizer would not cross the street for. But one architectural fact inside GCash matters more to this volume than all its headline numbers. GLife, the in-app mini-program mall, already hosts Alipay Plus's A+ rewards as a mini-app. Sit with that. A third-party rewards program run by a foreign operator, living inside GCash's distribution, in front of tens of millions of monthly actives. The precedent for max miles inside GLife is not hypothetical. The slot exists, and it has a tenant class. That is the single most concrete distribution which this research surfaced. And it comes with an equally concrete warning from August 2025, when the central bank, the BSP, forced GLife to shut down its gaming category. The platform amputated an entire vertical, overnight, under regulatory pressure. A tenant's lease inside GCash is only as good as the landlord's standing with the regulator, and GCash's standing is a managed thing. The 37 million peso phishing scare of May 2023, the unauthorized deduction glitch of November 2024, and the congressional and central bank probes that followed have trained both the regulator's reflexes and the public's wariness. A scar tissue story, Chapter 7 takes up in full. My verdict on GCash, stated in this volume's vocabulary: rent, don't anchor. It is the distribution shortcut everyone in Philippine fintech eventually rents, and a foundation nobody should build on. Now Maya, and now the alarm. Maya is the smaller wallet by an order of magnitude, and for years that was the whole story. It no longer is, because Maya grew a bank. Maya Bank counts 10.7 million customers and posted its first profitable year in 2025. 1.7 billion pesos of net income, which means the challenger wallet is now a licensed, newly profitable digital bank with something to prove, and a balance sheet to prove it with. And look at what it is assembling, piece by dated piece. A rewards currency named Maya Miles, the naming itself a strategic act, in a market where the word has no mass market owner. A premium credit card, Maya Black, soft-launched in May 2025, earning up to 10 times Maya Miles at partner merchants, with roughly 40,000 cards issued since. A retail co-brand with Landers, the membership club chain. And in early 2025, a partnership with Philippine Airlines, PAL, linking the program to Mabuhay Miles itself. Wallet, licensed bank. Premium card, Miles-branded currency, flag carrier bridge. Assemble those 5 nouns in Singapore and you would describe a bank building what HeyMax builds. In Manila, it is Maya, and it is happening natively, quarterly, with nobody framing it as the threat it is. Let me apply the skeptical hygiene before the alarm gets ahead of the evidence, because the pieces are individually modest. 40,000 Maya black cards is a fraction of 1% of the card market. The transfer mechanics between Maya Miles and Mabuhay remain thinly documented. Much of the public material reads as marketing adjacency rather than published ratios, and I flag that honestly. Maya Miles today is closer to a closed-loop rewards point with airline flavoring than to a transferable mile. If Maya stalls here, it is a curiosity. But strategy is judged on trajectory, not snapshots, and the trajectory is unambiguous. Every quarter since early 2025 has added a component, card, co-brand, airline linkage, and each component compounds the others. 40,000 cards is small, but it is the correct 40,000. Premium, travel inclined, exactly the 1 to 3 million segment this volume keeps circling. The window for an outside entrant closes from Maya's side, not GCash's. That is the asymmetry to hold onto. Here is the difference and the danger, stated as one sentence each. The difference: Maya's ecosystem is locked. Its miles earn inside Maya products, live inside Maya's app, and point at Maya's chosen airline, while HeyMax's entire thesis is issuer agnosticism. Every card and every bank feeding one transferable currency with some 20 transfer destinations. The danger: in a market with no miles literacy, the difference may not be legible. Category words in mass markets get defined by whoever says them loudest first. If Maya spends 2026 and 2027 teaching its segment that miles means Maya Miles, earned in one app, spent through one ecosystem, aspirational mostly by branding, then a later entrant arrives not as the teacher, but as the correction, explaining to an already taught market that real miles are something else. Corrections are expensive. Definitions are nearly free. That, more than any feature Maya ships, is what the head start buys. The prior volumes sharpen the contrast. In Singapore, the incumbent threat was erosion, banks nerfing the generosity HeyMax fed on. In Hong Kong, it was strength, programs so dominant the aggregator had to prove it added anything. The Philippine threat is neither. It is definition. A wallet with a banking license naming the category before the category's natural owner shows up. And unlike the Singapore and Hong Kong incumbents, Maya is not defending an existing loyalty franchise. It is improvising one, which makes it faster, less predictable, and unburdened by an installed base it might devalue. What does this mean for HeyMax? 4 things in descending order of comfort. First, the wallet reframing is mandatory. Any Philippine plan that leads with a standalone consumer app is refusing the market's actual architecture. And the low-cost move the numbers support. A beachhead embedded in a wallet or an issuer, business to consumer, runs through exactly the rails this chapter mapped. Second, GCash is the rent option, and the G-Life mini-app precedent makes the wedge concrete. A Max Miles presence inside G-Life would put the product in front of more Filipinos in a week than a standalone launch would reach in years, priced always, with the regulatory amputation risk and GCash's trust arc in view. Third, Maya is the clock. Measure the entry window in Maya product releases, not calendar quarters. Each black card milestone, each deepening of the PAL linkage, each published transfer ratio shortens it, and the moment Maya Miles becomes genuinely transferable into Mabuhay at a published rate, the story of the first real miles in the Philippines is gone. Fourth, the counterposition is already written, because it is the one thing Maya structurally cannot say. Every card you already hold, every bank you already use, feeding one currency with a whole menu of airlines behind it. Neutrality is HeyMax's product. The Philippine question is whether it arrives while neutrality still has a market to define, or after Maya has defined the market against it. Chapter 5, the Conglomerate Coalitions. Daily spend loyalty in the Philippines lives inside conglomerate walls that nobody aggregates across. And the tell that the walls are load-bearing is that both national airlines, rather than building open programs of their own, bolted themselves onto retail coalitions owned by shopping empires. That is my core claim, and it completes the ground survey this volume's first part set out to draw. Chapter 1 mapped the people. Chapters 2 and 3 mapped the airlines and the cards. Chapter 4 mapped the wallets. This chapter maps where the ordinary Filipino's loyalty points actually accumulate, which is none of the above. They accumulate at the mall. Here is the working. Walk the estates first, because the scale deserves respect. The SM Advantage Card, SMAC, is the country's largest retail loyalty program at 10.7 million members, roughly doubled from 5 million in 2020, earned and burned across more than 4,000 partner stores in the SM empire of malls, supermarkets, and department stores. Click, spelled CLIQQ, is the 7-Eleven program, and it claims around 17 million members, plausibly the widest loyalty reach in the country, though I note these member counts are press-reported rather than audited, and I treat them accordingly. Go Rewards is the Gokongwei Group's coalition, spanning Robinson's supermarkets and department stores, Caltex fuel stations, Cebu Pacific flights, and the Go Time digital bank. Pura Gold runs its perks program for shoppers, and more remarkably, a program called Tindahan na Ailing Puring, roughly Ailing Puring Store, for more than 1 million of the tiny neighborhood retailers Filipinos call sari-sari stores. Loyalty infrastructure for the corner shops themselves. And Mercury Drug's Suki card, Suki being the word for a loyal regular customer, is the quiet default in virtually every Filipino wallet, because everyone, eventually, buys medicine. The mechanics across all of them rhyme. Peso-pegged points at roughly 0.5% to 1% back, credited instantly, spent where they were earned. Rebate grade, immediate and closed, the exact opposite of a deferred aspirational currency at a scale of tens of millions of members. Now the airline anomaly, which is the detail that told me I was looking at a different loyalty civilization. In every market I have covered, the airline program is the gravitational center, and retail plugs into it. Supermarkets earn you Crease Flyer, drugstores earn you Asia Miles. The Philippines runs the arrow backward. In August 2024, Philippine Airlines, PAL, upgraded its partnership with SMAC, plugging the flag carrier into the malls program. In 2022, Cebu Pacific went further and dissolved into the mall entirely. GetGo, its frequent flyer program, was killed, and its members were migrated into Go Rewards at 1 point to 1 peso. Both airlines surveyed the Philippine loyalty landscape and concluded that the retail coalitions own the audience. The center of loyalty gravity in this country is not the airport, it is the checkout lane. The GetGo migration deserves a closer look because its afterlife is still shaping consumer psychology. On paper, the conversion was clean, 1-to-1 into a peso-pegged coalition. In the communities, the ledger reads differently. As one member put it, translated from the Taglish, it got force-converted to Go Rewards. It is not as good as before. Another summarized their post-migration relationship with the program in a phrase that translates to, "I just stopped bothering." Hold those quotes, because Chapter 7 will file them into a larger catalog of named burns. For this chapter, their meaning is structural. The one time a Philippine airline currency died, it died into a conglomerate coalition, and the members experienced the migration as a devaluation with a smiley-faced exchange rate. Filipinos have already learned, from direct experience, that points held in an airline's program can be force-marched into grocery money. That memory is part of the ground an entrant inherits. And yet Go Rewards, the program that absorbed GetGo, is also the most instructive machine in the market because it is the closest thing the Philippines has built to everyday spend-a-flights at scale. The mechanics, 1 point equals 1 peso. A Go Time debit card earns a point for every 100 pesos at Robinson's Family Merchants and a point for every 500 pesos elsewhere. Points redeem into Cebu Pacific seats, and inside the Go Time app, they are cash liquid at 80 centavos on the peso, an instant floor under the currency's value. Groceries and fuel become flights or become cash at the member's whim. It is peso-pegged, single airline, and closed-loop. No aspiration, no multiplier, no premium cabin dream, but it proves the behavioral premise an aggregator needs proven. Filipino consumers will route everyday spend toward travel when the loop is simple, instant, and floored. Around it, the Gokongwei group has built the most complete loyalty-relevant stack in the country: airline, supermarkets, fuel, bank, coalition. GoTime itself is the distribution proof, roughly 7.8 million customers by late 2025, with community coverage in mid-2026 citing around 10 million and 53 billion pesos in deposits. The figures differ by date, and I flag the spread. Those customers were acquired at a cost below $5 each by signing people up from kiosks on Robinson's store floors. That the bank still lost 3.44 billion pesos in 2024 is its own cautionary chapter. The acquisition machine, though, is real, and nothing HeyMax could build alone in the Philippines would touch it. SM plays the opposite game, and its openness genuinely surprised me. SMAC is the only Philippine coalition that lets outside currencies in, the Mabuhay Miles bridge from August 2024, and a two-way AirAsia rewards exchange from March 2025. Two airline programs race to plug into the same mall program within 7 months, kingmaker evidence, if any were needed. But note what SM lacks: no bank, no wallet, no airline of its own. It is open precisely because it is anchorless, a points hub with nothing of its own to fly or fund. Ayala, the third great estate, is the inverse problem. It owns a bank, BPI, with its rewards program. It owns a telco, Globe, with another. And it has a nascent super app currency in Zing. Fragments that have never been wired into a single coalition, an aggregation opening, not an anchor. And across all three estates, the finding that defines this chapter: nobody aggregates across the walls. SMAC points do not talk to Go Rewards. Click does not talk to Suki. Each program exists to keep spend inside its owner's estate, which means cross-conglomerate aggregation, precisely HeyMax's model, is not merely absent but structurally resisted. The seat is empty because the walls are the business model. This is where the contrast with the earlier volumes earns its keep. Singapore's loyalty map is drawn by banks orbiting one airline currency. Open transfer menus exist because loyalty, there is a banking product competing for the same customer. Hong Kong's map is drawn by airline currencies strong enough that everyone else denominates in them. The Philippine map is drawn by mall ownership. Loyalty as a retail moat, not a financial product, and moats do not interconnect by invitation. An aggregator here is not filling a gap the incumbents forgot. It is proposing to breach walls the incumbents built on purpose. Half opportunity, half warning, and the warning has a name. The estate best equipped to host an aggregator, Gokongwei with its full stack, is by the same token the estate best equipped to clone one. A tension the partnership chapters resolve with a JV and exclusivity argument I will only foreshadow here. What does this mean for HeyMax? 4 things. First, relocate the center of gravity in every Philippine plan. The loyalty capital of this country is the mall, not the airport, and partner architecture must begin from retail coalitions, not airline programs. The airlines themselves already made that choice. Second, bridge, don't replace. Tens of millions of Filipinos already hold peso-pegged coalition points, and a two-way bridge between Max Miles and a coalition currency, with Go Rewards cash floor and instant Cebu Pacific utility as the model, offers day-one value that no imported points app could conjure alone. The Get-Go SCAR simultaneously warns that any bridge must be voluntary, transparent, and generous, because this market has already lived through one forced conversion. Third, read the triangle honestly. Gokongwei is the full stack and the natural anchor. SM is the open door with no aircraft behind it. Ayala is fragments awaiting a wiring diagram. The resolution belongs to a later chapter, but the shortlist is already this short. Fourth, respect the empty seat. Nobody aggregates across the conglomerate walls, and that absence is the single strongest argument both for HeyMax's relevance and for caution. The seat is empty because filling it requires the estate's consent, and the estates profit from the walls. Winning here will not look like out-executing a weak incumbent. It will look like convincing an empire that a breach in its own wall, on its own terms, pays better than the wall itself. And that negotiation, not any app launch, is the real Philippine entry. Chapter 6: The Discount Economy. The Philippines has spent 30 years running one of the most effective consumer training programs in Southeast Asia, and almost everything it taught is the opposite of what HeyMax needs. Piso fares taught Filipinos that flights cost nothing if you're fast. Marketplace coins taught them that points are pesos with an expiry date. Grab's rebrand taught them that even the regional platforms have given up on aspiration. And yet the same curriculum produced, as a side effect, the one behavior an aggregator can actually monetize. Millions of people who will sit online at midnight, app open, waiting for a deal to drop. The discount economy is at once HeyMax's deepest cultural obstacle and its most convertible raw material, and the honest analysis has to hold both of those truths at the same time. Start with the Piso fare, the 1 peso base fare, because everything else is downstream of it. Cebu Pacific has been running 1 peso base fare sales for 3 decades. It marked the 30th anniversary in March of 2026 with a Piso sale frenzy, and between anniversaries the cadence is roughly monthly. Mother's Day sales, Independence Day sales, 188 peso one-way base fares in June. This is not a promotion. It is an institution, and the community behavior around it has hardened into discipline. On the Philippine travel subreddit, members trade strategy the way Singapore miles chasers trade transfer bonus timing. One member asks, and I am translating from the Taglish, how often do a seat sales travel windows fall in the months right after, and what is the best strategy? Another explains the mechanics with a veteran's precision, again translated. If the Piso fare or the 88 peso fare appears, the seats are real. It is simply first come, first served. That member adds that a Piso sale international flight lands at around 3,500 to 4,500 pesos all in. And missing a sale produces genuine anxiety posting. Will the same destination come around again, in the same period, at the same price? Look at what that school actually teaches. First lesson, the reference price of a flight is approximately 0. Not the average price, the reference price, the number the mind anchors on. A 15,000-mile award that a Singapore optimizer reads as a triumph reads to a Piso-trained Filipino as a worse deal than the sale they camped for last month. The community has drawn the conclusion itself, unprompted, as investment advice. As one card optimizer put it, translated from the Taglish, I would avoid transferring miles to budget airlines or to airlines that often run Piso sales. The value of your miles just gets wasted that way. That is a Filipino card optimizer explaining, in one breath, why the country's largest carrier is structurally hostile terrain for a miles currency. Second lesson, and this is the one that matters for HeyMax, deal hunting is a schedulable skill. The midnight camp, the fare calendar literacy, the first-come first-served reflexes, this is exactly the check-in app before you spend behavior that a deals feed platform monetizes. The Piso sale built the muscle. It just attached it to a rival's calendar. The e-commerce coin economies run the same curriculum at higher frequency. Shopee is the country's largest platform, roughly 55% market share by the common analyst estimates, with its Philippine site drawing on the order of 36 million visits a month. And its official reward currency is designed with a candor I almost admire. 1 Shopee coin equals 1 peso off. Coins expire 3 months from the month they were earned. Discounts are capped at 25% per item and 200 coins a day. Every parameter of that design, verified on Shopee's own help pages, says the same thing. This is a deliberately cheap, fast-expiring retention token, built to drive the next order and evaporate before it becomes a liability. Filipino shoppers hold it, spend it, and never mistake it for savings. TikTok Shop, at roughly 30% share, does not even bother with a persistent currency. Its economy is vouchers and live-stream discounts, buying transactions rather than loyalty balances. Lazada, at around 15%, runs the same coin pattern on thinner subsidies since its regional pivot to profitability. Then there is Grab, which is the most instructive case because it moved in the wrong direction on purpose. In November of 2025, Grab rewards became Grab coins across the region, Philippines included, points converted 1-to-1, expiry set at 6 months from the month earned, and earning extended to every payment method. On the surface, that is a loyalty upgrade. Underneath, it is a retreat. The old Grab rewards era, when points could transfer into KrisFlyer, is gone, and the new coin has no airline bridge at all. A super app with regional scale looked at the aspirational rewards position and walked away from it, doubling down on a cheap closed-loop coin. For HeyMax, the reading is double-edged. It vacates the everyday spent-miles position rather than contesting it good. It also tells you what a sophisticated, well-capitalized operator concluded about the economics of aspiration in this market, and that is worth taking seriously. The closest structural analog to HeyMax's online cashback leg has been running the experiment for a decade, and its results are the most useful data in this chapter. Shopback Philippines survived the group's near-death retrenchment of March 2024, 195 staff cut, roughly a quarter of the headcount, with the chief executive reframing the company around self-sustainability, and its Philippine storefront is live and actively merchandised as of August 2026. Shopee at up to 15% cashback, ClickUp to 25%, Agoda up to 20%, all verified on the site itself, with the usual caveat that up to rates are category maximums. Scale is murkier. The banner statistics on Shopback's Philippine homepage are group-wide numbers localized into pesos, and the circulating figure of 6.5 million Philippine users is unverified press kit material. I treat it as an upper bound. What is verifiable is the footprint. Over 22,000 Philippine App Store ratings, which is what a real consumer presence looks like. And yet, this is the finding. After roughly 10 years in the market, Shopback still circulates in Filipino money talk as a discovery. One community member, sharing what they called, translated from the Taglish, genuinely legit money hacks, leads with it. Use the Shopback app. Their biggest cashback so far was a hotel booking worth 100,000 pesos that returned 11,000 pesos. A decade in, and the country's only at-scale cashback aggregator is still an underrated hack rather than a default. Meanwhile, Snapcart, the receipt-scanning cashback app of the mid-2010s, quietly pivoted to selling brands' consumer data. Receipt cashback did not sustain as a consumer business here at all. Shopback's decade proves two things at once. The affiliate rails exist and pay out in the Philippines, and cash rebates alone plateau without a distribution partner. Which brings me to the arithmetic that any entrant has to survive. Philippine e-commerce gross merchandise value runs somewhere around 20 to 26 billion US dollars, but the average order is small, 600 to 1,500 pesos, and marketplace affiliate commissions run 1 to 6%. Work that through. A typical order funds roughly 20 to 35 miles. A 25,000-mile award, the kind of redemption that makes the model emotionally legible, would take something like 700 to 1,200 marketplace orders to fund from commissions alone. Nobody shops their way to Tokyo 1,800 peso Shopee basket at a time. The conclusion is structural, not rhetorical. Marketplace affiliate math cannot carry the model in the Philippines. The legs that can are the fat ones: financial product application payouts and travel commissions, the same Agoda grade rates that Shopback merchandises at up to 20 and 25%. The deal's feed builds habit. It cannot build the profit and loss statement. So where does that leave the conversion thesis? The discount economy trained collectors, not savers. Everything Filipinos currently collect is peso-pegged, fast expiring, and closed-loop, and they have learned to value it accordingly, which is to say, cheaply. That is the obstacle. But it also means the aspirational transferable mile has no incumbent teaching the counter lesson, and the contrast writes its own pitch. Earn something that does not expire in 90 days, is not capped at 200 a day, and compounds into a seat on a plane instead of 25 pesos off a phone case. The behavioral substrate is there. The creator culture, Taglish speaking, TikTok first, organized around the gleeful impulse deal, what Filipinos call the budol, is a deals distribution machine that no Miles product has ever plugged into. And the midnight deal campers are, functionally, HeyMax users who have not yet been given a reason to open a different app. I will not overclaim the ease of that conversion. The Paizo anchor deflates award values at exactly the moment of comparison, and even successful redeemers benchmark against it. One community member who paid $58 to $75 in fees on award flights to Taiwan and Hong Kong judged the result worth it because, in their words, it still beats the Cebu Pacific Paizo sale fares they were seeing. When your best case testimonial measures itself against your rival's loss leader, you are operating inside the rival's frame. What does this mean for HeyMax? 3 things. First, the behavior it needs exists here at national scale, trained, disciplined, and attached to other people's calendars. Entry is a repointing exercise, not an education from zero exercise, and that is genuinely rare. Second, the reward economics have to be built backward from the fat commissions, travel, and financial products, because Philippine ticket sizes make the marketplace affiliate leg decorative rather than load-bearing. And third, the Paizo anchor means the product must be framed against what Miles buy that Paizo sales never will: peak date seats, long-haul routes, premium cabins, the Japan trip, rather than against price. In the discount economy, HeyMax cannot win by being a better discount. It can only win by being the first thing Filipinos collect that is not one. Chapter 7: The Graveyard and the Expulsion. Philippine reward skepticism is not a mood. It is a memory. The burns have names: GetGo, CD, the BPI Delta co-brand, GCash's November glitch, AirAsia move, and each one taught a specific lesson that a foreign points app will be tested against on arrival. This chapter walks the graveyard deliberately because the scar tissue an entrant inherits is not generalized distrust of fintech. It is precise, well-documented, and community-narrated. Points that got force-converted into a worse currency. Cards that changed owners mid-flight. A co-brand that died without ceremony. A wallet that leaked money on a Saturday morning, and a travel super app that regulators threw out of the country entirely. Understand these 5 stories, and you understand both the reception a Miles product will get and the regulatory posture it will operate under. The most instructive grave belongs to GetGo. Cebu Pacific's frequent flyer program was the mass-market Filipino travel currency, and in August of 2021, the airline announced it was killing it, migrating members into Go Rewards, the Robinsons Retail Coalition, at 1-to-1, with the migration done by 2022. 1.1 peso. The archived win-down page is all cheerful logistics. Check your email for your account number, download the app, link your card. But what actually happened, structurally, is that a generation of Filipino travel points savers watched their airline currency get converted into a groceries and retail currency. The country's largest domestic carrier exited the Miles business, and it has never returned. The community's verdict survives verbatim, and I want to quote it at length because the register matters as much as the content. One member, translated from the Taglish, said, "Yes, I had GetGo, and then it got force-converted to Go Rewards. It is not as good as before." Another, on the co-brand card, again translated, "I got this before to earn miles, but the points got devalued after the pandemic until it was no longer worth keeping. It was such an enormous hassle." A third member traces the full arc from delight to exit, translated once more, "I got so many free flights back then, even at Paizo fare rates. But they are terrible now. Then I got fed up, and I stopped caring about cards and points altogether." And then there is the ambient nostalgia, translated again, "It makes me miss Union Bank's old GetGo," alongside the flat epitaph, "There is no decent travel card anymore." Read those carefully, and you see the real damage. The GetGo burn did not just destroy points value. Several members describe disengaging from the entire rewards category afterward. That translated sentence, "I stopped bothering," is the sentence a Miles entrant should pin above its Philippine planning documents. The market's memory holds both the fantasy, free flights, remembered fondly, and the betrayal, conversion, devaluation, hassle, and any new program gets read through both at once. Citibank's exit compounded the lesson from the premium end. Citi sold its Philippine consumer business to Union Bank between 2022 and 2024, with cards relaunched under Union Bank branding and the migration completed over a system shutdown weekend in March of 2024. Premier Miles and Thank You Points, the country's most internationally credible rewards products, changed owner and terms while their holders watched. Nobody's balance was stolen. That is not the point. The point is that even the bluest chip foreign issuer proved impermanent, and the products most trusted by the sophisticated tier are precisely the ones that vanished. The BPI Delta SkyMiles co-brand tells the same story in miniature. Quietly killed during the pandemic, remembered now only in passing. One member notes that his card changed when the bank ended the partnership with Delta during the pandemic, a partnership that simply stopped existing, with no successor. Then there is the wallet arc, which trained the reflexes that now greet every consumer money incident. GCash is the most used financial app in the country, and its trust history is a sawtooth. In May of 2023, users woke to drained wallets in what the company described as a foiled attempt to steal 37 million pesos, attributed to phishing rather than hacking, with the privacy regulator confirming the phishing chain. Months later, GCash deactivated 4 million suspicious accounts. In November of 2024 came the unauthorized deductions glitch, funds restored, a feature suspended, and then the institutional cascade. A House probe sought, a Senate probe sought, an investigation by the central bank, the BSB, with a mid-December deadline, and a separate bank net glitch hitting bank transfers 2 weeks later. The wariness generalizes to every wallet. As one member wrote of GCash's main rival, translated from the Taglish, there were so many hacking issues with Maya last year and early this year that it cemented my choice to move my funds out. So many issues that moving money out became the safe default. 2 lessons transfer directly to any rewards entrant. First, Filipinos will forgive an app with daily utility. GCash never lost its base. Second, Congress and the central bank now probe consumer money incidents reflexively, and anything that looks like stored value gets read through that lens. The 5th grave is the freshest, and the only one dug by the state. AirAsia Move, the super app that bundled flights, hotels, and AirAsia points, and the closest thing to a travel rewards super app operating in the market, was ordered to cease selling in the Philippines by the aviation regulator and the transport department on the 30th of May, 2025, after displaying domestic one-way fares as high as 40 to 77,000 pesos. The Civil Aeronautics Board found it had engaged in deceptive practices in violation of the Air Passenger Bill of Rights and levied a 6 million peso fine that June. For a would-be entrant, the expulsion signals 2 things. Competitively, it removed a funded regional rival from the exact intersection of travel and rewards. Institutionally, it demonstrated that Philippine regulators will police travel and rewards apps aggressively, publicly, and quickly. This was not a warning letter, it was an ejection. The quieter deaths round out the picture. iMoney, once a comparison site competitor, has effectively left. Its Philippine site now redirects permanently to Malaysia, a small data point that doubles as a caution about how hard comparison market monetization is here. Laika, the social commerce gems app that boomed in 2020 and 2021, was reportedly suspended by the central bank over unregistered e-money operations and never recovered. I flag that account as unverified in this research cycle, but the shape of it is consistent with everything else in this chapter. Novel reward currencies attract Filipinos fast, and regulators watch them closely. Which brings me to the legal architecture underneath the scar tissue, because it is stranger than it first appears. The Financial Products and Services Consumer Protection Act, Republic Act 11765, passed in 2022, gave the central bank explicit enforcement powers over supervised institutions and e-money. Loyalty points are neither. A closed-loop miles balance is not a deposit and not e-money, which means the Filipino consumer burned by the next get-go style conversion has no statutory recourse on points value, and the central bank has no formal mandate over the program that burned them. For HeyMax, this cuts in a direction most entrants would not expect. The law is not the obstacle, the absence of law is. A foreign app asking Filipinos to hold value denominated in miles starts with zero statutory trust scaffolding beneath it, in a market where the population has already learned, 5 separate times, what happens when program value evaporates and nobody is accountable. Every burn in this chapter happened to customers of large, visible, locally anchored institutions, and they still got burned. An entrant with no local anchor is asking for trust on terms worse than the institutions that squandered it. What does this mean for HeyMax? First, the objection it will face in the Philippines is not, "What is this?" It is, "What happens to my miles when you change the rules?" And it needs an answer engineered into the product, not written into the marketing. Visible redemption reliability, named local partners, terms that constrain the operator because no regulator will backstop the promise. Second, the graveyard is, coldly assessed, an asset. GetGo's death left the country's largest carrier without a miles program and left behind a nostalgic, pre-trained population of former collectors. That translated sigh, "It makes me miss the old GetGo," is latent demand waiting for a claimant. Third, the expulsion sets the compliance bar. Fair display, points valuation, and marketing claims will be held to Air Passenger Bill of Rights grade scrutiny, and the correct posture is to operate as if the Consumer Protection Act covered loyalty points, even though it does not. In a market this scarred, the winning move is not to promise better than the dead programs did. It is to be structurally unable to do what they did. Chapter 8, What's Missing? After 2 chapters of incumbents and 1 of graves, here is the finding that reframes the whole volume. As of August 2026, no true HeyMax clone exists in the Philippines. There is no independent platform where everyday online and card spend earns a transferable, multi-airline miles currency. Both of the revenue legs HeyMax stands on elsewhere, affiliate cashback, and paid financial product applications, are locally validated, running today, operated by companies too small or too strained to extend them into miles. The seat HeyMax occupies in Singapore is, in Manila, empty. But empty seats deserve suspicion before celebration, and this one is empty for reasons that split roughly in half opportunity, half warning. And it sits on a clock, because Maya is building toward it from one side, and Ascenda already supplies the incumbent from the other. First, the search itself, because an absence claim is only as good as the looking. Systematic sweeps for miles earning and cashback apps in the Philippine market, run in August of 2026, surface a short and telling list. ShopBack is the only at-scale cashback aggregator, and it pays cash, not miles. Snapcart, the receipt-scanning cashback app of the last decade, has pivoted entirely to selling brands' consumer data. Its consumer proposition is gone. Zap, which styles itself the country's #1 loyalty program, is in practice a white-label point system for small merchants, no miles, no network. iMoney has exited outright, its site redirecting to Malaysia. Everything else that smells like miles lives inside a bank or a wallet. Maya's new Maya Miles currency, Union Bank's Miles Plus cards, and the co-brand cards of Philippine Airlines, PAL. Each is closed-loop, single ecosystem, or single airline. HeyMax itself shows no Philippine presence, no local merchants, no local users, nothing. The product category has 0 occupants. The structural read from the field research is the one I keep returning to. The behavior is heavily contested. The product is uncontested. Filipino consumers are among the most intensively trained collectors on Earth, coins, stamps, raffle entries, coalition points. But everything they collect is peso-pegged, fast expiring, and trapped inside the platform that issued it. Meanwhile, every component of the HeyMax model already exists here, just never in one place. Shopback runs the cashback layer, Maya owns the Miles branding, Go Rewards turns groceries into Cebu Pacific seats. The pieces are scattered across 3 companies and 2 conglomerates. Nobody has assembled them, and assembly is precisely HeyMax's trade. Now the 2 revenue legs in turn. The affiliate leg is proven. Shopback's live Philippine storefront demonstrates that Shopee, Lazada, Klook, Agoda, and Trip.com all pay out on Philippine transactions, at travel rates rich enough, up to 20 and 25% on Agoda and Klook, to fund real rewards. But the operator proving it is a survivor of its group's 2024 retrenchment, in profitability mode, with the Philippines unlikely to be an investment priority. The rails are open, the incumbent on them is coasting. The application reward leg is proven too, and by a familiar name. MoneyMax, the country's leading comparison site, pays welcome gifts worth up to 4,099 pesos on card applications. Exactly the get-paid-to-apply economics HeyMax monetizes in Singapore at its highest value earn events. Its parent is Money Hero Group, listed on the NASDAQ and trading as a struggling microcap, the same parent that owns SingSaver. Which means the one company running these economics in Manila knows HeyMax intimately from Singapore and can be expected to defend its Philippine bank relationships. The only other scaled comparison player, eComparemo, shares nothing with the applicant, it monetizes leads and keeps the economics. So the get-paid-to-apply position is held by a single-strained operator, thinly. Both legs stand, neither is being run hard. So why is the seat empty? The warning half of the answer is economic, and I laid the arithmetic out in the discount economy chapter. The Miles viable segment is 1 to 3 million people. By my estimate, marketplace order sizes fund 20 or 30 miles at a time, and the community that would evangelize the product is small. But there is a second, quieter mechanism, visible in the influencer economics. Philippine bank referral bounties are tiny. Union Bank pays around 4,000 pesos per approved card, RCBC up to 1,800 pesos, against the several hundred Singapore dollar payouts, by my estimate, that sustain an entire professional Miles blogging class up north. That gap explains why no Philippine Mile Lion exists. And the absence of a Mile Lion explains part of why no Philippine HeyMax exists. The content layer that would have surfaced the opportunity, educated the audience, and eventually gone product never formed because the affiliate economics could not feed it. The seat is empty partly because the market is thin, and partly because nobody was ever paid to notice it. The opportunity half is just as concrete. The redemption side of the market is a duopoly choke point, Mabuhay Miles on one side, Cebu Pacific seats reachable only through Go Rewards on the other, and neither is well served. An entrant that bridges into even one local airline currency, plus the foreign programs sophisticated Filipinos already prefer, would be offering something that literally does not exist here. And crucially, the sophisticated tier has already demonstrated the demand. The card community routes points to Crease Flyer and Asia Miles today, through clunky 5-to-1 bank conversions, because nothing better exists. The behavior HeyMax serves is being performed, badly, with hand tools. 2 shadows fall across the empty seat, and I want to size both honestly. The first is Ascenda. Caligo, Ascenda's consumer hotel booking storefront, already runs a dedicated Mabuhay Miles earn shop, offering up to 10 Mabuhay Miles per US dollar spent on hotels, bookable by Philippine users today. That means the loyalty infrastructure vendor I flagged in the Singapore volume, as HeyMax's biggest structural threat, has a commercial relationship with Philippine Airlines that predates HeyMax's own transfer partnership. If PAL ever decides it wants a full transfer hub, an earn network, or a modernized partner marketplace, and its Amadeus replatforming was explicitly pitched around a broader partner network, Ascenda can supply the whole thing business to business, white-labeled, without HeyMax ever being in the room. The empty seat, in other words, may not stay a consumer product seat at all. It could be filled by infrastructure sold directly to the incumbent. The second shadow is Maya, and it is the one on a timer. Maya has assembled, piece by piece, the beginnings of a native Miles ecosystem. A currency called Maya Miles, a Maya black card earning up to 10 times miles, with some 40,000 cards issued since May of 2025, a Landers co-brand, and a Mabuhay Miles partnership signed in March of 2025, all inside a licensed digital bank that just posted its first profitable year. Maya Miles is not a transferable multi-airline currency. It is ecosystem locked, and that is both the difference and the danger. The difference, because HeyMax's issuer-agnostic, multi-partner model remains genuinely distinct. The danger, because Maya does not need to replicate HeyMax to close the window, it only needs to make the word miles mean Maya in the Filipino mind before anyone else shows up. Every quarter, that ecosystem hardens. Add the smaller encroachments, Agoda's Points Max already selling airline miles earn on hotel bookings, and the SM Advantage card, SMAC, with its bridge into Mabuhay, and the perimeter of the empty seat is being nibbled from every direction, even as the seat itself stays vacant. What does this mean for HeyMax? The Philippines offers it something neither Hong Kong nor Singapore did. A category with no incumbent, both revenue legs pre-validated by other people's money, a proven pain point, and a redemption duopoly begging for a bridge. That is the real, non-hypothetical opportunity, and it is rarer than it looks. But the same analysis says the seat is empty partly because the economics at today's market size could not support anyone sitting in it. That is the warning, and it is why the entry economics chapter matters more than enthusiasm does, and the window is not open-ended. It closes from the demand side when Maya finishes teaching Filipinos what miles are, and it closes from the supply side the moment PAL decides to buy its loyalty infrastructure from Ascenda. The empty seat is HeyMax's to take, but empty is a snapshot, not a promise, and every quarter of deliberation is a quarter in which one of two better-resourced players can make the question moot. Chapter 9, the Null set with 3 footnotes. Here is the chapter this volume exists to write, and its finding fits in a sentence. HeyMax's Philippine record is a null set, no entry, no announced intent, no roadmap mention ever annotated by exactly 3 footnotes, which together sketch a diaspora-first shadow strategy that nobody, possibly including HeyMax itself, has ever named. The first 2 volumes could work from the company's own announcements. This one works from silence, and silence has to be handled with more care than noise. So before the footnotes, I want to establish that the nulls are real nulls, searched, enumerated, and verified, and not merely things I failed to find. The method matters here. These absences were established by enumeration. The full sitemaps of HeyMax's 2 content archives, the production JavaScript served by its own web application, its public asset storage, its careers pipeline, its merchant API, and the news index, each read directly in early August of 2026. When I say 0, I mean the list was pulled and the entry is not on it. Start with the company's own voice. HeyMax's blog, 114 posts, enumerated from its sitemap, contains not a single address that mentions the Philippines, Mabuhay, Cebu, or Manila. The archive is Singapore and Hong Kong-centric, and the telling detail is that partner posts do get written for Southeast Asian airlines. There is a dedicated post for Vietnam Airlines Lotus Miles program. No equivalent was ever published for Mabuhay Miles, the company's own Philippine flag carrier partner. That news lives only in a help center note. The predecessor newsletter, 44 posts enumerated, is equally silent. The roadmap statements are the sharpest null of all. The May 2025 revenue announcement promised expansion into Australia, Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. The January 2026 Series A release promised Japan, Taiwan, and Australia by the end of 2026. Korea has appeared on a roadmap and then disappeared from one. The Philippines has never appeared at all. And the outside world mirrors the inside. Of 95 news items in a news sweep for the company, not one is Philippine. Rappler, The Inquirer, Philstar, the Manila Bulletin, no Philippine outlet has ever written the word HeyMax. The production code is more decisive than the press, because code is what a company does rather than what it says. HeyMax's own web application bundle, read in August of 2026, hard gates sign up by phone prefix to exactly 4 countries: Australia, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Indonesia. There is no +63, the Philippine prefix. A Filipino with a Philippine number cannot complete registration or the Know Your Customer check. The app is closed to them at the front door. The Know Your Customer flag images on HeyMax's storage bucket tell the same story in pictures. Flags exist for Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia, and Indonesia. Probes for a Philippine flag return nothing, as do probes for Malaysia, Japan, Taiwan, Brunei, Thailand, and Vietnam. Sit with that for a moment, because it is the single most forward-looking artifact in this entire record. The next market being wired into HeyMax's sign-up flow is Indonesia, a country absent from every public roadmap, while the roadmap promised Japan and Taiwan are absent from the code. Card linking, meanwhile, still covers only Singapore and Brunei-issued Visa cards. Yes, a Philippine App Store listing exists, with 0 ratings, the artifact of global distribution rather than availability. For calibration, Shopback's Philippine storefront shows over 22,000 ratings. That is what presence looks like. And the merchant roster completes the Null. Of 4,728 merchant pages, not one is a Philippine domestic brand, no GCash, no Jollibee, no SM, no BDO. The Philippine Airlines and Cebu Pacific pages that surface in search are card database entries keyed to Singapore merchant records. The page for Philippine Airlines, PAL, literally carries a Celogy Road address in Singapore. They are not partnerships. A Philippines resident user today cannot sign up, cannot link a card, and cannot earn. Now the footnotes, in descending order of certainty. Footnote 1 is a verified fact with a disputed meaning. Mabuhay Miles is a live Max Miles transfer partner. The deal is confirmed 3 independent ways. The Mile Lion reported, on the 18th of May, 2026, that PAL would join the roster as HeyMax consolidated to 20 direct partners. PAL's own website hosts an official partner page. And PAL's loyalty chief marked the go-live on LinkedIn around the 26th of May. The terms, 1-to-1, with a minimum transfer of 1,000 Max Miles. But read PAL's framing, verbatim from its own partner page. Quote, exclusively for our members in Hong Kong and Singapore, unquote. And the PAL executive who announced it, Gino Ricardo Domingo, the airline's assistant vice president for loyalty and head of Mabuhay Miles, described it as opening more ways for Southeast Asia-based members to turn everyday spend into travel, strengthening the growing global reach of Mabuhay Miles. Both sides, in other words, describe a corridor product, overseas Filipinos and Southeast Asian residents earning abroad, with Mabuhay as the destination currency. It is not a Philippine market entry, and nobody involved claims it is. One structural detail deserves flagging. Per HeyMax's Help Center, the transfer itself carries no geographic restriction. Any verified user with 1,000 miles can send them to PAL. The gate sits entirely at sign-up. AirAsia Rewards, relevant to Filipino low-cost flyers, is also a partner, at a better-than-par ratio. Cebu Pacific is not a partner, and no evidence suggests it ever has been discussed. Footnote 2 is a verified fact with an inferred meaning. HeyMax started hiring in Manila in July of 2026. 3 roles. A customer support agent posting that drew over 200 applicants. A support operations lead based on-site in Manila, since closed, and a marketing communications manager listed for the Philippines. None of the job text mentions a Philippine market, a launch, or Tagalog. The support lead description says the company is headquartered in Singapore, with operations expanding into Hong Kong and new markets across Asia, and it asks the hire to adapt support playbooks for markets like Hong Kong. The marketing role has an identically worded twin in Kuala Lumpur. These are remote talent locations, not market designations. Every engineering, product, and design role remains in Singapore. My interpretation, and I label it as analyst inference, rather than anything the company has said, is that this is Manila as remote back office for the Singapore and Hong Kong business, the classic Philippine business process outsourcing play. Its timing, arriving alongside the HeyMax first launch and the customer support failures documented in the Singapore volume, suggests it is a fix for a service crisis, not a beachhead. What it undeniably does is put Filipino employees inside the product every working day. Footnote 3 carries the most uncertainty, and I want to state it exactly. Sean Dai, HeyMax's co-founder and chief operating officer, appears to be a graduate of Ateneo de Manila University, the Ateneo, which would make him Filipino or at minimum Philippine-educated, and would make HeyMax's second-in-command the single strongest human bridge to a Philippine play. This is unconfirmed. The claim comes from an aggregator-sourced mirror of his LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn itself blocks direct verification. The mirror's career history matches the baseline record exactly. Facebook product analyst from 2013, data roles in Menlo Park and New York, Meta Singapore, then co-founding HeyMax in January of 2023, which raises my confidence that the profile is genuine. But the correct epistemic status remains, reported, consistent, unconfirmed by any primary source. And here is the detail I find genuinely strange. No HeyMax material, no bio, no press release, no interview has ever mentioned it. If the company's chief operating officer is an Ateneo-educated Filipino, it is a fact the company has never once leveraged. The residue beyond the 3 footnotes is thin. Seed investor January Capital holds 2 small Philippine portfolio companies. Series A lead Peak XV holds none. The various partner pages served under Philippine locales, Cathays, EVAs, PalZone, are content system replication, visible to Filipino readers who still cannot register. Read the 3 footnotes together, and a shape emerges that no press release describes. A transfer pipe that lets Singapore and Hong Kong residents, home to hundreds of thousands of overseas Filipino workers, convert everyday spending into the Philippine flag carrier's currency for flights home. A Manila office filling with Filipino staff who use the product daily. A co-founder who, if the unconfirmed record is right, walked the Ateneo campus. That is a diaspora-first Philippine strategy in everything but declaration. Serve the Filipino abroad first, build familiarity, currency linkage, and local staff quietly, and let the home market wait. The honest caveat is that the evidence cannot distinguish design from coincidence. Each footnote has a self-sufficient non-Philippine explanation, and the production code, which encodes actual intent, points to Jakarta. What this means for HeyMax is that it holds a position in the Philippines it has never acknowledged owning. A live PAL relationship, a Manila payroll, and possibly a founder's passport. Assets that cost it nothing to assemble, and that no competitor can see, because they are scattered across a help center note, a job board, and an unverified profile. The Null set is real. No entry, no intent, no plan. But the footnotes are real too, and the rest of this volume asks what a deliberate strategist would do with them. Chapter 10, The Expansion Ledger. Everything in this volume so far has asked whether the Philippines deserves a HeyMax entry. This chapter asks the other question, whether HeyMax can afford one, and its own expansion ledger answers no. The record as of August 2026 shows 1 real second market, 1 shell, 2 promised launches that remain unshipped with 5 months on the clock, and 1 unannounced market already wired into production code. Read as capacity evidence, that ledger says a roughly 30-person company has no room for a 5th concurrent commitment, and that verdict holds independently of every opportunity the previous chapters documented. Markets get argued from their own qualities, entries get executed from a company's capacity. This chapter is the capacity audit. Open the ledger at its largest debit, Australia. HeyMax launched there quietly on the 25th of November, 2023, announced on its old newsletter with more than 50 Australian online merchants, and a line I keep rereading, quote, "Our goal is to let Maxers earn max miles no matter where you are globally," unquote. That is the voice of a company that believed launches were additive, switch on a market, watch it compound. 2 years and 8 months later, here is what the Australian market shows. The Australian App Store storefront carries 0 ratings, not few, 0, against roughly 10 on the Singapore storefront after a listing reset, and 20 in Hong Kong within months of launch. Qantas, the one transfer partner that made an Australian value proposition coherent, was removed in the June 2026 partner cuts. Virgin Australia had already fallen with the shutdown of the Cash for Miles program. There is no Australian card linking, and no Australian hire is visible anywhere in the company's careers pipeline. Sign-up works, the country is wired into the code, the deals pages exist, but nobody is home. And the company knows it. The January 2026 Series A release listed Australia among the markets HeyMax would expand its presence into by the end of 2026, a company repromising, as future expansion, a market it had launched 26 months earlier. I read that as a tacit admission that the 2023 launch did not take. Australia is a shell, technically open, commercially unworked. The lesson generalizes, and it is the ledger's first principle. Launches are cheap, markets are expensive. Flipping a country code in a constant and writing a launch post costs an engineering sprint. Making a market real costs partnerships, local staff, marketing, and years, and a market given the first without the second does not merely underperform. It sits on the books accumulating reputational interest, as Australia now does every time a roadmap has to mention it again. The ledger's one clean credit shows what the expensive version looks like. Hong Kong got the full treatment. The acquisition of CRIP in July of 2025 to buy a local team and card linking capability, a launch in November of 2025 with Cathay Pacific as the flagship airline partner, a dedicated general manager in David Wang, an Octopus partnership for the payments anchor, a localized domain, market-specific help documentation. Every element Australia lacked, Hong Kong had. Whatever one concludes about Hong Kong's ultimate economics, the first volume had its doubts, nobody can call it a shell. The formula is legible. An acquisition, plus a general manager, plus a flagship airline, plus a payments anchor. That is what a real HeyMax market entry costs, and the company has executed it exactly once. Now the promises outstanding. The Series A release committed HeyMax to Japan, Taiwan, and Australia by the end of 2026. As of August 2026, with 5 months remaining. No launch announcement for either new market anywhere. 1 rating on the Japanese App Store storefront and 0 on Taiwan's. No Japanese or Taiwanese phone prefix in the sign-up code. No flag assets. And not a single Japan-based or Taiwan-based role in the careers pipeline, where every engineering, product, and design position remains Singaporean. What does exist is business development. A finalist appearance at a Japanese fintech pitch event in February of 2026. A thoughtful essay from the Hong Kong general manager on the Japan inbound opportunity in May, and a Japan Airlines transfer partnership added in July. That is a company exploring Japan, not building it. Partnerships first may even be the right sequencing, but measured against a year-end double launch promise, with the engineering artifacts at 0, the commitment looks stretched to the point of implausibility. The roadmap record itself counsels discounting. Korea was promised in May of 2025 and had vanished from the roadmap by January of 2026 without comment. Then there is the entry no roadmap mentions, which I flagged in the last chapter and weigh here as capacity evidence. Indonesia's phone prefix and know your customer flag are live in HeyMax's production sign-up flow, real engineering, shipped, for a market that appears in no public statement, while the publicly promised Japan and Taiwan appear nowhere in the code. Garuda Miles is already a transfer partner. Code is the most honest roadmap a company publishes, and HeyMax's code says the next market is Jakarta. For the Philippine question, that lands twice. It shows the company's actual expansion attention is already allocated, and allocated elsewhere. Added up as an operating load. HeyMax is a company of roughly 30 people. It is currently digesting the Hong Kong integration, its only capital-intensive market entry. It contractually owes the public 3 launches by December. It is running HeyMax First, a Fly Now Earn Later membership that puts the company's own balance sheet into the loyalty loop for the first time. It is nursing an app rated 3.7 stars and a customer support record bad enough that, as the Manila hiring wave suggests, it is standing up an offshore support office mid-year to absorb the overflow. And it is quietly wiring a 6 geography into its codebase. Against that load, a Philippine consumer launch would be the 5th concurrent market commitment and the hardest one on the board. Everything this volume has established about the Philippines says it cannot be done in the Australian style. The scar tissue documented in the graveyard chapter means trust must be borrowed from a local anchor. The perception research says the content culture requires funded Taglish creator work. The coalition chapters say distribution runs through conglomerate negotiations that take quarters. And the discount economy means market education is a real budget line, not a blog post. The Philippines demands the Hong Kong treatment at greater difficulty and lower revenue per user. The most expensive playbook the company owns, executed farther from home, by a team that has not yet finished paying for the last one. A 30-person company that attempted it now would not be running 5 plays. It would be failing 5 plays simultaneously. And the Australian shell shows exactly what a HeyMax market looks like when attention runs out. Let me be precise about what I am and am not concluding, because this chapter's claim is deliberately narrow. I am not concluding that the Philippines is unattractive. Chapters 6 through 8 argue substantial parts of the opposite, and the entry economics chapter will sharpen it. I am concluding that HeyMax's demonstrated expansion capacity, 1 funded entry executed well, 1 unfunded entry abandoned in place, 2 promises aging toward default, cannot absorb a Philippine consumer launch in 2026 or 2027, no matter how good the market case gets. The ledger, not the market, is the binding constraint. What does this mean for HeyMax? It means the Philippine decision should be gated on the company's own ledger clearing, and the falsifiers are conveniently measurable. I would revisit this verdict when the outstanding commitments resolve honestly, when Japan and Taiwan are either shipped with Hong Kong-grade substance or formally dropped, and when Australia has either worked or closed, rather than being repromised. I would revisit it when the support crisis, the Manila office exists to absorb shows up as a ratings recovery. And I would revisit it when capacity arrives in a form that does not cannibalize the core, a Series B sized for multi-market operation, or a Philippine structure where a partner carries the operating load, which is precisely why the business-to-business-to-consumer architectures in the coming chapters matter more than any consumer launch fantasy. Until then, the cheapest honest reading of the expansion ledger is also the strategy. Keep the Philippine assets the company already holds, the Mabuhay pipe, the Manila office, the diaspora corridor, compounding quietly, and do not write a 5th check the company demonstrably cannot cash. Chapter 11, Entry Economics. The economics of a Philippine entry come down to one asymmetry. The affiliate arithmetic that funds a shopping rewards feed at Singapore ticket sizes fails outright at Philippine ones, while the interchange headroom, the regulatory ease, and the partnered acquisition precedents are all unusually favorable. Which means a business-to-business-to-consumer architecture pencils where a standalone consumer launch does not. That is the chapter in a sentence. Before I show the working, a warning I intend to repeat until it becomes tiresome. This is the most estimate-heavy chapter in the volume. The Philippines publishes card counts, but not cardholder counts, total billings, but not per-user spend, and no loyalty app acquisition costs at all. Every number that no primary source states will be flagged as an estimate in the very sentence that contains it. In a market this thinly documented, the analyst's job is less to compute than to bound honestly. Start with the demand base, because everything else divides by it. The Credit Card Association of the Philippines counted 18.5 million credit cards in force at the end of 2025, up about 12% year-on-year, from 13.9 million in early 2024. That is cards, not people. Assume 1.5 to 2.2 cards per holder. An assumption, I stress, not a statistic. And unique cardholders land somewhere between 8 and 12 million people, roughly 10 to 15% of adults, among the weakest penetration in Southeast Asia. Now cut again, down to the segment that can actually play the miles game. The state think tank, the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, classifies 58.4% of Filipinos as low income, and the average family earns about 353,000 pesos a year. At typical Philippine earn rates, even a modest award of 25,000 miles implies 750,000 to 1.25 million pesos of card spend, 2 to 3 years of an average family's entire income, routed through a credit card. So the miles viable population is not 18.5 million. It is, by my estimate and nobody's census, 1 to 3 million affluent, multi-card, travel-taking Filipinos concentrated in Metro Manila, Cebu, and Davao. That is the true denominator of every projection in this chapter, and I want it understood that the range is doing a lot of work. The honest error bars run from a Singapore-sized niche at one end to 3 Singapores of thinner spenders at the other. Then measure the fuel per user. Global data puts total Philippine card payment value at 3.5 trillion pesos in 2024, forecast to reach 4.2 trillion in 2025 and 7.3 trillion by 2029. Take the credit card share of the 2025 figure, plausibly 2 to 2.5 trillion pesos, which is an estimate resting on a forecast, and I say so out loud, and spread it across 18.5 million cards, and per card annual spend comes out at around 110,000 to 135,000 pesos. That number is an estimate stacked on an estimate, and I flag it as such. But its order of magnitude is the load-bearing fact of this chapter. It is roughly 1/10 of what a committed Singapore miles chaser routes through cards in a year. The earn engine that powers HeyMax elsewhere would run here on 1/10 of the fuel per user. The counterweight is growth. Cards are compounding at 12% a year. Central bank card receivables stood at about 1.23 trillion pesos in March of 2026, growing at nearly 30%. The total card spend pool nearly doubles by 2029 on Global Data's forecast. Thin today, compounding toward viable, precisely the shape of a market you enter cheaply and early, rather than expensively and now. Now the arithmetic that kills the standalone fantasy. Philippine e-commerce runs somewhere around 20 to 26 billion US dollars a year in gross merchandise value, on credible estimates, with Shopee holding roughly 55% of the platform market. But average order values are small, 600 to 1,500 pesos, per industry commentary, itself an estimate, and marketplace affiliate commissions run 1 to 6%. Work a typical case. A 1,000 peso Shopee order at 4% commission yields 40 pesos gross, about 70 US cents. Pass half of that to the user as miles, and a typical order funds perhaps 20 to 35 max miles. A long-haul business class award of around 70,000 miles would therefore take 2 to 3,000 orders. Nobody shops their way to Tokyo at Philippine ticket sizes. Marketplace affiliate revenue here is an engagement layer, a reason to open the app weekly, and nothing more. The categories that do clear the bar are the ones with Singapore-shaped tickets, travel commissions of 3 to 7% on bookings of 10,000 to 60,000 pesos, financial product sign-up bounties, and bills and top-ups at volume. That is visibly the actual mix at Shopback Philippines, which is the closest thing to a live experiment we have. The catch is that the financial product leg is shallower than Singapore's. Union Bank pays about 4,000 pesos per approved card, and RCBC up to 1,800 pesos, against Singapore bounties I put, and I stress this is an estimate, at 150 to 350 Singapore dollars and beyond. That gap is exactly why no professional Philippine miles blogger class exists. The bounty pool cannot support one, and it caps the richest earn events HeyMax would want to run. The consolation is directional. 12% annual card growth means issuers are actively buying acquisition, and the bounty pool deepens on the same clock as everything else. Here is the genuine surprise on the revenue side. The central bank, the BSP, has never capped credit card interchange. The Credit Card Law, Republic Act 10870, regulates issuance and disclosure, not pricing. Merchant discount rates run roughly 1.5 to 3.5%. Per peso of spend, Philippine card economics are richer than Singapore's and far richer than Australia's, where the Australian central bank's caps thin the reward pool to a gruel. This is why Union Bank and Metrobank can fund earn rates of 17 pesos per mile on travel, spend it all. Two caveats keep me from celebrating. First, Philippine merchants routinely add 3 to 7% card surcharges despite rules against it, which suppresses card usage at exactly the small merchants where growth should come from. Second, the constraint was never the rate, it is volume per user. A fatter margin on a tenth of the throughput is still a thin, absolute stream. The cost side is where the comparable entries teach their expensive lessons. The published benchmark that matters is go times. Customer acquisition below $5 against 50 to 100 for traditional banks, achieved by piggybacking on Robinson's retail floors. And yet go times still lost 3.44 billion pesos in 2024. Cheap acquisition does not fix thin per-user revenue. In this market, average revenue per user is the binding constraint, not the cost of acquiring the customer. Tonic, the standalone control case, took roughly 4 to 5 years and repeated restructuring to reach break-even. Sources differ on the exact quarter, somewhere across 2025 and 2026, in a sector where digital bank bad loans hit 14.1%. Atom thrives, but on a 5 billion peso credit facility from Asia United Bank, a Singapore fintech scaling on a Philippine bank's balance sheet. And Shopback, after nearly a decade in market, still circulates in the communities as an underrated hack. The pattern is remarkably consistent. Everyone finds Philippine acquisition cheap and Philippine monetization hard, and the winners either attached themselves to a distribution giant or moved up the value chain into credit. Where does a Miles platform sit in that pattern? Better than most, in one respect. Monetizing affiliate flows and bank marketing budgets means HeyMax is structurally spared the credit risk that ate Tonic's margins. Worse in another, it inherits the per-user revenue ceiling in full, with no lending escape Hatchet could take without becoming a different company. And the Singapore playbook does not transfer, because it assumed a pre-existing Miles-literate base that the Philippines does not have. Creating that base from a standing start, at standalone acquisition cost, at Philippine per-user revenue, is the Tonic curve with weaker unit economics. The configuration that pencils at 2026 numbers is the other one. Business to consumer, powering the Miles layer inside a wallet, an issuer, or a coalition that already owns the customer, holding blended acquisition under $5, and paying for that privilege in margin share and brand subordination. So when does standalone pencil? My checklist has 5 conditions. 3 to 5 million affluent cardholders with per card spend approaching 250,000 pesos. A devaluation-proof redemption anchor. At least one issuer signed before launch. A wallet-grade distribution partner. And a council-confirmed closed-loop legal perimeter. On the Card Association's current growth rates, the first condition is plausibly a fact for 2028 to 2030, not for 2026, an extrapolation, I stress, not a promise. Ranked against Japan, Taiwan, and Australia for the next market slot, the Philippines loses on every demand-side metric, spend pool, program quality, Miles literacy, and wins only on interchange headroom, regulatory permissiveness, partnered acquisition cost, and growth rate. Right market, early clock. What this means for HeyMax. The 2026 numbers do not support a consumer launch, and no optimism about the affluent tier changes the divisor. They do support the cheap version, a business-to-consumer beachhead that rents someone else's distribution, the Hong Kong and Singapore diaspora corridor that already exists, and pre-positioning that costs relationship time rather than marketing budget. My falsifiers are explicit. If affluent tier per card spend turns out to be Singapore-like, data nobody publishes, the horizon pulls in sharply. If card growth stalls, or if Maya closes the seat first, it recedes or vanishes. I hold every estimate in this chapter loosely. That is precisely what makes them usable. Chapter 12, the Rulebook. Philippine regulation is quietly one of the most permissive rulebooks in the region for exactly what HeyMax does. Closed-loop loyalty needs no central bank license, thanks to an express exemption in Circular 1166, and a foreign rewards platform can be 100% foreign-owned. Meanwhile, the Consumer Protection Statute, Republic Act 11765, leaves a loyalty-shaped gap that cuts in both directions at once. That double edge is the chapter. Coming off 2 volumes set in Hong Kong's laissez-faire and Singapore's regulator-shaped terrain, my prior was that an emerging market would present the thicket: licenses, localization, ownership caps. The Philippines inverts the prior. The rules barely touch the model. What touches the model is everything around the rules, partner bank compliance overhead, an activist enforcement temperament, and the fact that when a points program burns its members here, the law offers them nothing, which becomes the entrance trust problem to solve commercially. Start with the question that decides whether this business is even legal to run without a banking regulator's blessing. Is Max Miles electronic money? The central bank, the BSP, has an e-money framework, Circular 649, as amended by Circular 1166 in 2023, and it expressly excludes closed-loop schemes. Value issued as payment to the issuer itself, and loyalty points redeemable only within the issuer's ecosystem, sit outside e-money issuer licensing. Max Miles, as currently designed, is structurally that thing. Miles are earned from partners, held on HeyMax's ledger, and redeemed only through HeyMax into airline transfers and travel, never spent at a third-party till. That is the same legal shape as the points of the SM Advantage Card, SMAC, or the late get-go, neither of which was ever regulated as e-money. I label this plainly as my judgment, resting on law firm summaries of the circular, not a legal opinion, and the first line of any Philippine budget should be Philippine counsel confirming it. But the reading is not adventurous. It is the natural one. What the reading buys is significant, because the fallback if it fails is genuinely bad. If Max Miles were ever deemed e-money, the capital bars raised by Circular 1166 run, my estimate, and I stress the tiering needs verifying, into the low hundreds of millions of pesos. And the central bank has a demonstrated habit of freezing the queue entirely. New non-bank e-money issuer applications were under moratorium from December of 2021 to December of 2023. Just get a license is not a reliable plan B in a jurisdiction that periodically stops issuing them. Which converts a legal nicety into an architectural constraint I would tattoo onto the product spec. Max Miles must never become spendable at third-party merchants at face value in the Philippines. Spendability is the line that flips a loyalty currency into e-money. And the temptation will come. Some future partner will propose pay with miles at the till as an engagement feature, which is why I flag one subtlety for counsel now rather than later. The partnership architecture this series recommends runs a two-way bridge into Go Rewards, whose points are already cash liquid at 80 centavos apiece inside Go Times app. Does adjacency to a cash liquid currency on the partner's side of the bridge change the closed-loop analysis on HeyMax's side? I believe not. Redemption into another program is still redemption, not spending. But that question is precisely what a formal opinion is for. The corporate mechanics are almost anticlimactic. An internet loyalty and affiliate business appears nowhere on the foreign investment negative list, so full foreign ownership is allowed. The practical bind is the foreign investments acts paid-in capital floor for foreign-owned, domestic market enterprises, $200,000, reducible to $100,000 with advanced technology or 15 Filipino hires. Thresholds to re-verify with counsel, since they shift. Note the small irony. HeyMax's Manila support hiring, begun in July of 2026 for entirely different reasons, is already walking toward that headcount. Running the platform itself takes ordinary registration with the Securities and Exchange Commission, not a central bank license. Data privacy is real, but light by regional standards. The privacy law, Republic Act 10173, requires a data protection officer, plus registration of processing systems with the National Privacy Commission at any meaningful scale. Breaches must be notified within 72 hours, and the Commission does enforce. But cross-border transfer to Singapore servers is permitted with accountability measures. No Indonesia-style localization, no Vietnam-style data residency wall. For a Singapore-headquartered platform, that is the difference between adding a compliance workstream and re-architecting the stack. Now the statute that gives the chapter its double edge. Republic Act 11765, the Financial Products and Services Consumer Protection Act of 2022, hands the central bank and its sister regulators broad conduct powers, restitution and disgorgement among them, over financial products and services. E-money is covered. Credit is covered. Loyalty points are not. A pure closed-loop loyalty platform sits mostly outside the Act's perimeter. Edge 1, favorable. HeyMax faces no conduct regulation overhead on its core product. Edge 2, unfavorable, and I think underweighted by anyone who reads only the statute. Filipino users hold zero statutory protection on points value. When GetGo's members watched an airline currency become a groceries currency, when CD's cardholders were migrated mid-flight, when BPI's Delta SkyMiles co-brand died in the pandemic, nobody had recourse because points are not deposits and not e-money. A foreign app asking Filipinos to hold miles, therefore, starts with no trust scaffolding the law provides. Every ounce of confidence must be built commercially through visible local partners and redemption reliability. That is a perception problem, and I take it up properly in the next chapter, but it originates here, in the gap. Edge 3 is indirect. HeyMax's partners, the banks and wallets whose budgets it would monetize, are squarely covered by the Consumer Protection Act, and they will pass their compliance burden through contractually. Product approval cycles, marketing material sign-off, the works. The permissiveness is personal to the platform. The friction arrives through everyone it touches. Budget quarters, not weeks, for each bank launch. Then there is the referee's temperament, which the statute books do not capture. In May of 2025, the Civil Aeronautics Board and the Transport Department ordered AirAsia Move, a super app run by an actual airline group, to cease selling in the Philippines outright, fined it 6 million pesos, and grounded the order in deceptive fare displays. 2 lessons. The convenient one, a would-be travel super app rival was removed from the field by regulatory action. The important one, Philippine regulators will act decisively against consumer-facing deception in travel and rewards, license or no license, foreign parent or no. The same temperament shows elsewhere. When GCash suffered its unauthorized deduction glitch in November of 2024, the House, the Senate, and the central bank all opened inquiries within weeks. In August of 2025, the central bank forced the shutdown of gaming inside GLife, GCash's own mini-app platform, the very distribution surface this series contemplates renting. The perimeter can move, and it can move around your partner while you are standing on it. The rulebook is permissive, the enforcement culture is activist. Those are compatible facts, and together they say the risk here is not licensing, it is conduct. Fare displays, promo terms, expiry disclosures. The boring hygiene is the actual compliance program. Set the Philippine rulebook against the alternatives, and its rank improves further. Australia caps interchange and is reforming surcharges. The regulator there is actively thinning the pool that funds rewards. The Philippines caps nothing. Merchant discount rates of 1.5 to 3.5% leave the reward economics alone, as the previous chapter showed. Indonesia and Vietnam localize data. The Philippines does not. And a loyalty platform's regulatory position here is categorically better than what any lending or wallet fintech faces: no prudential capital, no bad loan supervision, no e-money audits, provided the closed loopholes. So the council checklist, explicit and short. 1. A formal closed-loop opinion under Circular 1166, stress-tested against the Go Rewards liquidity question and any future Spend Your Miles feature. 2. Current Foreign Investments Act thresholds and the cleanest entity structure for a company already employing Filipinos. 3. The scope of Privacy Commission registration and the Data Protection Officer appointment. 4. A conduct review of every consumer-facing surface, earn rate claims, expiry terms, award availability language, against the spirit of the Consumer Protection Act and the AirAsia Move precedent, even where the letter does not bind. 5. A standing watch on the e-money perimeter, because Circular 1166 was itself a redrawing, and it will not be the last. What this means for HeyMax: regulation is not the gate to the Philippines. It may be the single most favorable dimension of the whole entry case. The gate items are a legal opinion that costs weeks, an architectural commitment to keep max miles unspendable, and the discipline to treat consumer protection, hygiene as existential rather than cosmetic. The falsifier is equally clear. If counsel cannot bless the closed-loop reading, or if the central bank redraws the perimeter to capture loyalty currencies, then the entry economics of the previous chapter get a license-shaped hole blown through them, and the timing checklist acquires a sixth, harder condition. Chapter 13, How the Philippines Would Receive It. Zero awareness is a blank slate, not a deficit. The danger facing a HeyMax arrival in the Philippines is not skepticism about a foreign app, but the scar tissue of named, remembered burns, and the record of every recent entrant says borrowed local trust beats imported credibility every time. That is my claim, and the evidence for the first half of it is almost comically clean. Across every Philippine community I could search, the Philippine credit card subreddit, the investing subreddit, the travel subreddits, the personal finance forums, HeyMax appears exactly once, not as a rewards app. In October of 2024, a power user on the credit card subreddit, maintaining a thread about extracting merchant category codes from banks, posted a changelog note. He had found a new source to get free merchant category codes before spending anything, the HeyMax website. That is the entirety of HeyMax's organic Philippine footprint. One hobbyist using the company's database as a free lookup tool for optimizing his local bank's reward categories. Meanwhile, roughly 90% of global HeyMax chatter lives in Singapore subreddits, and of the 95 news items in the company's press record, not one is Philippine. No Rappler, no Inquirer, no Philstar has ever printed the word. I read that single breadcrumb as a gift twice over. First, the blank slate means no baggage, no failed launch to live down, no half-remembered promo that went wrong. Second, look at who found it and how. An optimizer hunting a free tool who then documented it publicly for his community. Nobody marketed to him. That is the native discovery channel of the Philippine card nerd world, and it is the cheapest acquisition channel HeyMax could ever have, if it builds things worth discovering. Now meet the community that would sit in judgment. The Philippine credit card subreddit counted about 230,000 members in an August 2025 snapshot. Tracker's site figures up to around 280,000, and the sources differ, so I hold the range, in a country of 115 million people. This is the entire organized Miles Optimizer universe of the Philippines, and its culture is distinct. Fiercely anti-shill, allergic to sponsored content, unbuyable and only earnable. Its bigger, louder sibling is Facebook native, Kaskasan Buddies, or KKB, a credit card community grown to 1.2 million members. The old forum world is literally gone, PinExchange's origin server is down, so card nerd attention has consolidated into exactly 2 rooms. Any reception HeyMax gets will be decided in them. What do those rooms already believe? That miles are real but brutal. The genre-defining post is a newcomer doing arithmetic in public. Quote, "So a usual flight to Hong Kong is 10,000 points. You need to spend 750,000 pesos using this card. Is that the correct way to convert?" End quote. It is, roughly, and the community's standing verdict absorbs it. Miles win mathematically, returning 2 to 4% of spend against a fraction of a percent for cashback. But as the canonical reply puts it, this is really more for the heavier spender, or someone patient enough to accrue miles over a long period of time. The sophisticated members have already quietly defected from the flag carrier's program. As one put it, translated from the Taglish, the points are worth more in KrisFlyer. That sentence should electrify anyone at HeyMax, because it means the community already exports loyalty value into exactly the foreign currencies HeyMax aggregates. And the fear that keeps newcomers away is specific and priced. On a Mabuhay Miles award, one member warns, the fees and surcharges can run to $250, the cost of a whole round-trip ticket on other low-cost airlines. The pain HeyMax solves is not latent here. It is loudly, publicly documented in the community's own arithmetic. But so are the burns, and this is where reception turns treacherous. The Philippines has named scar tissue, and the deepest scar is get-go. Cebu Pacific killed the country's biggest airline loyalty program and force-migrated a generation of travel point savers into a groceries and retail currency. Listen to how it actually sounds in the community years later. One member translated from the Taglish, "I had get-go, and then it got force-converted to Go Rewards. It is not as good as before." Another, describing the aftermath, again translated, "Then I lost the will. I stopped caring about cards and points entirely." A third, wistful in translation, "It makes me miss Union Bank's old get-go." Note what the quotes record. Not just lost value but category disengagement, people who exited the entire rewards game after one forced conversion, alongside a residue of nostalgia that a well-built successor could inherit. And the scar tissue extends beyond get-go. Citibank sold its Philippine consumer business, and its internationally trusted rewards cards changed owner and terms mid-flight in 2024. BPI's Delta SkyMiles co-brand died quietly in the pandemic. One member's summary of the whole landscape, translated from the Taglish, "There is no decent travel card anymore." Layer onto this the wallet trust arc. GCash, the app on 94 million registered accounts, survived a 37 million peso phishing scare in May of 2023 and an unauthorized deduction glitch in November of 2024 that triggered House, Senate, and central bank inquiries. It kept its users. Daily utility forgives much here. But the episodes trained a reflexive wariness that generalizes to every money app. As one member put it, translated from the Taglish, "There were so many hacking issues at Maya last year too, and that cemented my decision to move my funds out." Now recall the previous chapter's finding. The Consumer Protection Statute covers e-money, but not loyalty points. A Filipino burned by a points program has no regulator to call. A foreign app asking Filipinos to hold miles therefore inherits the wariness with none of the statutory scaffolding. Every trust signal must be built commercially. A local entity. Named partners people can see in a mall. Redemptions that visibly work. Which is why the foreign entrant pattern matters so much. The fastest win in recent Philippine fintech history is GoTime, the Gokongwei and Time joint venture. 7.8 million customers by late 2025, and per community coverage from mid-2026, with figures that differ by date across sources, around 10 million customers and 53 billion pesos in deposits, acquired at under $5 a customer through Robinson's store floors. Within 3 years, it reached default trust status in community advice. The standing recommendation, translated from the Taglish, runs, start first with the safe ones like Maya or GoTime. A foreign fintech recommended as safe in the same breath as the incumbents because it wore a conglomerate's face. Contrast Tonic, the standalone Singapore entrant, 4 to 5 years of grinding to break-even. Contrast Shopback, a decade in market and still described by its own happiest users as an underrated hack. Borrowed trust compounds, imported credibility plateaus. One more layer, how the country talks. The working language of Philippine money talk is Taglish, every quote above code switches mid-sentence in the original, and the community's best explainers teach conversion math in that hybrid register. Singapore English marketing copy will read as foreign, formal Filipino will read as government. The content culture is TikTok first. TikTok reaches 81.8% of Philippine adults, creator-led, funny, and organized around impulse deal culture. What Filipinos call budol, the beloved slang for being sweet-talked into an impulse buy. There is no Philippine mile lion, no professional miles authority whose endorsement anoints a product. The previous chapters explained why the economics never supported one. That vacancy means no gatekeeper can bless HeyMax, and no gatekeeper can block it. Claiming the authority slot is possible, but it means funding the market's miles education yourself, in Taglish, on TikTok, probably for years. What this means for HeyMax, reception in the Philippines is winnable, but only borrowed and only earned. The blank slate spares it prejudice. The scar tissue guarantees the first question will be some form of, translated from the Taglish, what happens to my miles when you leave? And GetGo taught everyone the default answer. The countermeasures write themselves from the evidence. Enter wearing a local face people can see. Make the first redemptions loudly, verifiably real. Speak the hybrid register natively, rather than translating into it. Give the optimizer rooms free tools to discover rather than ads to endure, because the one Filipino who ever found HeyMax found it exactly that way. And never, under any circumstances, AstroTurf the one community whose trust, once earned, is the cheapest distribution in the country, and once lost, is gone for good. Chapter 14, Opportunities. Strip away everything this volume has said about thin spend and scar tissue, and 5 real opportunities remain standing. The vacant authority slot in Philippine miles culture. Cebu Pacific's missing loyalty program. Philippine Airlines partner window before it joins the oneworld alliance. A diaspora corridor 10 million strong that HeyMax has already half-built by accident. And influence purchasable at a fraction of Singapore prices. I want to be precise about what I mean by real. Each of these is an asset that exists today, documented in this volume's research, that an entrant could act on without waiting for the market to mature. None of them, alone or together, overturns the entry economics verdict of Chapter 11. What they define is the shape of the cheap move, what is worth doing now, before the standalone horizon arrives. The first opportunity is the vacancy where an authority should be. Singapore's miles culture has the mile lion, the Philippines has nobody. No professional miles blogger class exists here, and Chapter 16 will show why in detail. Bank referral bounties of 4,000 pesos per approved card at the top end cannot support one, but the consequence matters now. The country's miles education is conducted by amateurs in 2 rooms, a subreddit of some 230,000 members, and the Facebook world of Kaskasan Buddies, or KKB, at 1.2 million members, with no institutional voice above them. An empty authority slot means no gatekeeper to pay, no incumbent narrative to displace, and a first-mover chance to become the reference the community cites. The catch, stated honestly. Claiming the slot means funding market education yourself, free tools, redemption tutorials, award availability transparency, for years in a market that cannot yet repay the investment. The precedent that says it works is small but perfect. The only Filipino who ever found HeyMax organically found it as a free merchant category code lookup tool and evangelized it to his community unpaid. Free utility is how you court the optimizer class here, and the optimizer class is how everything else starts. The second opportunity is the strangest fact in Philippine aviation. The country's largest domestic carrier has no miles program. Cebu Pacific killed GetGo in 2021 and folded it into Go Rewards, a peso-pegged retail coalition where a point is a peso and nothing compounds toward a seat in the front of anything. This is a carrier flying roughly 20 million passengers in the first 9 months of 2025, doubling its net income to 12.3 billion pesos, and ordering up to 152 Airbus A321neo jets in the largest aviation order in Philippine history, around $24 billion of future capacity, with no aspirational loyalty currency, attached to any of it. I do not read this as an accident. Piezo-fare economics genuinely may not need a frequent flyer program, but it leaves a structural hole an aggregator can fill from outside. Max Miles could become the aspirational layer above Cebu Pacific's ecosystem without Cebu Pacific building anything. Through the two-way Go Rewards bridge this series partner analysis recommends, where Go Rewards points are already cash liquid at 80 centavos apiece inside Go Time and already redeem into Cebu Pacific seats. The country's biggest airline is reachable through a side door its own conglomerate left open, and nobody else is standing near it. The third opportunity has a countdown clock attached, which is what makes it urgent rather than merely interesting. Philippine Airlines, PAL, joins the oneworld alliance in 2027, and everything Mabuhay Miles has done since 2024 reads as preparation. The Amadeus loyalty replatform of August 2024 announced explicitly as enabling a broader partner network. The tie-up with the SM Advantage Card, SMAC, that same month. The Maya partnership in early 2025. The Alaska Airlines partnership in May of 2025. The PNB co-brand renewal that October. This is a program actively shopping for partners in its pre-alliance window, and HeyMax is already one. Since late May of 2026, Max Miles transfers into Mabuhay Miles at 1-to-1, a live pipe that PAL itself scopes, verbatim, as exclusively for our members in Hong Kong and Singapore. The opportunity is to deepen that relationship, more corridors, eventually Philippine origin scope, while PAL still needs partners more than partners need PAL. After oneworld membership lands, PAL's leverage rises, its dance card fills with alliance obligations, and the marginal transfer partner matters less. There is also a quieter signal inside this window. Since May of 2026, PAL flights can credit to Qatar's Avios. Even the flag carrier's own metal now feeds a foreign currency, with the regional Miles press advising exactly that. A carrier that comfortable letting value route through external programs is a carrier that can be worked with. The window is roughly 18 months wide as I write. Estimates elsewhere in this volume are hedged. This deadline is not. 2027 is announced. The fourth opportunity is the one HeyMax built without meaning to. There are roughly 2.16 million overseas Filipino workers by the statistics authorities count, inside a diaspora plausibly exceeding 10 million, remitting $39.6 billion in 2025. And the two densest, richest nodes of that diaspora are Hong Kong and Singapore, the two markets where HeyMax already operates, already card links, already has users. The Mabuhay Miles transfer pipe that exists today is, by PAL's own framing, a diaspora product, Southeast Asia-based members earning toward flights home. Nobody at HeyMax has named this strategy in public. The press record contains no Philippine word, but the pieces assemble themselves. A Filipino nurse in Singapore or a domestic worker in Hong Kong, earning Max Miles on spend and transferring them into Mabuhay Miles for the Christmas flight to Manila, is a served customer today, no Philippine entry required. The opportunity is to serve that corridor deliberately instead of accidentally. Taglish language onboarding in existing markets, remittance-adjacent partnerships, the flight home use case marketed as such. Every diaspora user is also a future evangelist inside Philippine family networks. The corridor is not just revenue, it is preceded distribution for the eventual entry. And the honest caveat, I am inferring intent from architecture here. The scoping of the Mabuhay pipe and the Manila back office hiring are consistent with a deliberate diaspora-first shadow strategy, but no HeyMax statement confirms one exists. It may simply be an accident worth converting into a plan. The fifth opportunity is that influence here is cheap, startlingly so, by the standards of HeyMax's home market. Macro creator rates run 50 to 80,000 pesos a post. Micro creators 5 to 15,000 by the figures in this volume's influencer research, and I stress these are estimates, roughly a third to a sixth of Singapore pricing. The mass tier is genuinely mass. The poor traveler's 1.1 million Facebook followers, Nicole Alba's and Charm de Leon's finance-literate YouTube audiences in the hundreds of thousands. TikTok reaches 81.8% of Philippine adults. And the proof that per-conversion creator economics work in Philippine travel already exists at scale. Klook's Creator program runs more than 3,000 Philippine creators on commission, 12% of its global creator base, in a market that is a fraction of that share of its revenue. That is the template to clone commission structures, not the flat-fee media buy. Above the creator layer sits the institutional prize. KKB itself, grown from 360,000 members to 1.2 million in 2 years, now holding a formal industry partnership with the Credit Card Association, reachable as a business partner in a way no Singapore community ever was. The caveat mirrors the asset. Cheap influence is cheap partly because the monetizable audience is thin and the anti-shill subreddit cannot be bought at any price. But pre-positioning, relationships, retainers, commission structures signed before launch costs a rounding error here. Singapore taught HeyMax what Miles community marketing costs at full price. The Philippines sells the same instrument at a discount because nobody else is bidding yet. What this means for HeyMax: these 5 opportunities share a property that should drive the plan. Every one of them rewards early, cheap action and punishes waiting. The authority slot stays vacant only until someone funds it. Cebu Pacific's hole invites a filler from any direction. PAL's window closes on an announced date. The diaspora corridor compounds from a base HeyMax already owns. Creator prices rise the moment a competitor starts bidding. None of this argues for a consumer launch. Chapter 11 stands. All of it argues that the pre-positioning phase is not a consolation prize, but a genuine land grab, available now at prices that will not recur. Chapter 15, Threats. Rank the threats to a Philippine entry by likelihood times severity, and an uncomfortable pattern emerges. 4 of the 5 are external. Maya finishing its native Miles ecosystem first, Gokongwei cloning instead of partnering, Kaskasan Buddies, or KKB, flipping from channel to competitor, and the country's rewards scar tissue transferring wholesale onto any foreign points app. But the highest scoring threat on my board is internal, and it is HeyMax's own execution record. I will take them in the order the market presents them, score each in prose as I go, and save the reckoning with the mirror for last, because that is where the ranking exercise actually ends. Threat 1, Maya closes the seat before anyone sits in it. Likelihood: hi, this is not a scenario, it is a trajectory already in motion. Severity: hi, it forecloses the product thesis rather than merely competing with it. Maya has assembled, piece by observable piece, the beginnings of a native Miles ecosystem inside a licensed, newly profitable digital bank. A rewards currency literally branded Maya Miles. The Maya Black Card, earning up to 10 times miles, with around 40,000 cards issued since May of 2025. A Landers co-brand pulling in warehouse club spend. And, the piece that matters most, a Mabuhay Miles partnership signed with Philippine Airlines in early 2025. Maya's first profitable year, 1.7 billion pesos of net income in 2025, means the build-out is now funded by operations rather than patience. What keeps this from being checkmate is the architecture. Maya Miles is ecosystem locked, earnable and meaningful only inside Maya's own walls, where Max Miles' entire identity is issuer agnosticism, earn anywhere, transfer anywhere. That difference is real, and it is also exactly the danger. An ecosystem-locked currency, backed by a bank's balance sheet, and a flag carrier partnership does not need to be better than an open aggregator. It needs only to occupy the Miles association in the Filipino mind first. Every quarter that passes, Maya hardens. This is the threat that sets the clock on everything else in this volume. Threat 2, Gokongwei clones instead of partnering. Likelihood: moderate to high, precisely because the partner analysis in this series concludes that the Gokongwei stack, Go Rewards, Go Time, Cebu Pacific, Robinsons, the Union Bank adjacency, is the recommended anchor. Severity: very high, arguably the highest single event severity on the board, because the anchor scenario and the doom scenario share a driveway. Consider the group's record from its side of the table. It already runs the country's closest thing to everyday spend-a-flights in Go Rewards. It already absorbed one airline loyalty program, GetGo, when the buy versus build math favored consolidation. And it has demonstrated both halves of the partner or clone decision. It partnered with a foreign fintech to build Go Time when the capability was exotic, and it in-houses ruthlessly once the capability is understood. A HeyMax pitch meeting is also, unavoidably, a product demo to the likeliest cloner in the country. The mitigation is structural, not hopeful. The series' recommendation of a joint venture-style arrangement with exclusivity exists exactly because of this threat. Make the anchor a shareholder in the open version, so it has no reason to build the closed one. But I will not pretend the mitigation is a cure. If Gokongwei decides an aspirational transferable currency belongs inside Go Rewards, it can build a domestic approximation with assets HeyMax will never own here. Threat 3, the scar tissue transfers. Likelihood, high, I would honestly say near certain in some form. Severity, moderate, it slows and taxes an entry rather than killing it, which is why it ranks below the two structural threats despite its probability. Chapter 13 laid out the record. GetGo's forced conversion and the members it drove out of the rewards category entirely. CD's exit, the quiet death of BPI's Delta SkyMiles co-brand, GCash's scares, and the congressional reflexes they trained. A foreign app holding miles walks into all of it at once. With, as Chapter 12 established, zero statutory trust scaffolding beneath loyalty points, because the Consumer Protection Act, Republic Act 11765, protects e-money and not this. The transfer mechanism is simple. The first skeptical comment under any HeyMax post will cite GetGo, and the comparison will be structurally fair enough to sting. What contains the threat is that it is answerable by behavior, visible local partners, redemptions that verifiably clear, a track record accumulated in public, and that the same scar tissue cuts against every competitor too, including Maya, whose own wallet carries hacking scare baggage in the community's memory. Scar tissue is a toll, not a wall. But tolls compound at Philippine per-user revenue, and an entrant paying full trust tax on thin unit economics feels it more than the incumbents do. Threat 4, KKB flips from channel to competitor. Likelihood, moderate. Severity, moderate to high and rising with the community's scale. KKB is this volume's biggest influencer map discovery. 360,000 members in April of 2024 to 1.2 million by March of 2026, and the entire distribution sequence in Chapter 17 leans on it as the Phase 1 partner. But look at what it already is. It launched its own KKB Super app in 2025, which already does deals and rewards. It signed a formal partnership with the Credit Card Association in March of 2026. That is not a fan page. That is an institution with product ambitions, industry legitimacy, and the one asset HeyMax cannot buy here, the community's trust, held natively. The flip scenario writes itself. KKB studies the partner's model through the partnership, adds a points aggregation feature to its super app, and becomes the local-faced version of the thing it was distributing. The mitigation echoes the Gokongwei logic: treat KKB as a business partner with aligned economics, revenue share rather than media buys, ideally with exclusivity, and accept the residual risk consciously. A channel this good is this good precisely because it could compete. Which brings me to threat 5, the quiet biggest one, HeyMax's own execution record. Likelihood, I can hardly score it as anything but very high because it requires no prediction, only pattern continuation. Severity, total, because it gates every opportunity and every mitigation above. The ledger, from this series' own verified record. Australia, launched November 2023, is a shell, 0 App Store ratings in nearly 3 years, and the Kanta's partnership since cut. Japan and Taiwan, promised by the end of 2026 in the Series A press, remain unshipped as of August 2026, a pitch appearance, a Japan Airlines partnership, essays. The production code says Indonesia is the next wired market. The Philippines' own country flag asset in that code literally returns a not-found error. This is a company of roughly 30 people that has historically announced more geography than it ships. And the Manila hiring of July 2026, customer support, support operations, marketing communications for Singapore and Hong Kong, is back-office capacity for existing markets, not an entry team. Set that record against what this volume's Philippine plan demands: a joint venture negotiation with one of the country's most sophisticated conglomerates, a bank integration under the compliance overhead of the Consumer Protection Act, a community strategy requiring years of patient, unpaid education, and a diaspora corridor needing deliberate product attention. The likeliest failure mode of HeyMax in the Philippines is not Maya, not Gokongwei, not GetGo's Ghost. It is a half-entry, an announcement, a partnership press release, a corridor left on autopilot, the Australian pattern transplanted to an archipelago that punishes half-commitment more brutally than a rich market ever would, because here the trust tax is prepaid and non-refundable. What this means for HeyMax: the external threats ranked here mostly sharpen the same verdict the economics already delivered: move early and cheaply on pre-positioning, structure every partnership against cloning, and never bet the entry on outrunning Maya to a consumer launch. But the internal threat rewrites the decision rule. Before asking whether the Philippines is ready for HeyMax, the honest question runs the other way. A company that has not yet shipped Japan, Taiwan, or a living Australia should treat its own ledger as the binding constraint, and any Philippine commitment it cannot resource to completion is not an option exercised early. It is threat 5, self-inflicted. The falsifier, and I genuinely hope to see it: Japan or Taiwan shipping on schedule would retire the biggest threat on this board overnight, and would upgrade every opportunity in the previous chapter from speculative to actionable. Chapter 16, The Influencer Map. The Philippine influence landscape for a Miles product is defined by what it lacks. There is no professional Miles blogger class because the referral economics never funded one. And so the attention an entrant needs sits behind exactly two doors: a Facebook institution 1.2 million members strong, and an unbuyable subreddit with a vacant authority slot between them, and a mass travel tier that only matters later. Map this terrain wrong, and a launch budget gets spent shouting into rooms that either cannot hear you or will never forgive you. This chapter is the map, the next one is how to walk it. Start with the biggest thing on it, because it is the piece I suspect most outside analysts would miss entirely. Kaskasan Buddies, or KKB, the name comes from Kaskasan, which means, roughly, swipe hard, is a Facebook-born credit card community that has grown into something closer to a national institution. The press-covered curve is remarkable. About 360,000 members in April of 2024, past 1.1 million by December of 2025, and 1.2 million by March of 2026. It launched its own mobile app in 2025, branded the KKB Super App, promising financial tools, personalized insights, and exclusive deals. And in March of 2026, it signed a formal partnership with the Credit Card Association of the Philippines, the CCAP, the same industry body whose quarterly survey gives this book its 18.5 million card number. Sit with that for a moment. The bank's own industry association now treats a Facebook group as legitimate infrastructure. The organization has a chief executive and co-founder, Joel Christopher Cabugos. It claims over 2 million members across its channels, and its app listing copy cites over 1.1 million nationwide, figures consistent with the group count. Its culture is peer data points at national scale, taglish, meme-literate, driven by deal screenshots, with a buddy's framing rather than expert-down instruction. Its monetization, working with banks, retailers, and restaurant groups to verify and feature promos, is professionalizing fast. Revenue specifics are not published, but the Super App framing and the CCAP tie-up tell you where it is heading. For HeyMax, KKB is two things at once, and both readings are load-bearing. It is the one channel that could move the Philippine card optimizer population in a single partnership. And it is a latent competitor because its app already does deals and rewards, and the distance from KKB Super app to KKB Miles feed is shorter than the distance from Singapore to Manila. The second door is the Philippine credit card subreddit, at roughly 230,000 members on an August 2025 snapshot, with third-party trackers citing figures up to about 280,000. Sources differ, and I note the spread rather than pick a number. This is the institution that inherited the audience of PinWixChange, which, after 2 decades hosting the country's credit card megathreads, is simply dead. The origin server no longer responds. One migrant to the subreddit put the succession plainly, translated from the Tagalog. Before I drifted to this subreddit, their credit card forums were where I got my promo updates. The consolidation matters strategically. Philippine card nerd attention now has 2 doors, Reddit and Facebook, and no third. The subreddit's culture is the same anti-shill hygiene I documented in the Singapore Volumes forums, possibly stricter. Referral links are policed, seeded posts get torched, and no brand can buy placement, which is exactly why the community is trusted. It is unbuyable and only earnable. And here is the detail I find genuinely encouraging. The single HeyMax mention in the entire Philippine record lives on this subreddit. From October of 2024, a user recommending HeyMax's cite as a free merchant category code lookup database. The earnable path has already worked once, organically, without HeyMax lifting a finger or, as far as I can tell, even noticing. Between the 2 doors sits the vacancy. The Philippines has no Mile Lion, no Mainly Miles, no full-time, authoritative Miles content institution of the kind HeyMax's Singapore story leaned on for coverage and credibility. Searching for one surfaces only the comparison cites Content Arms, Moneymax, a Money Hero Group property with the same parent as SingSaver, writing listicle-grade Miles content as bait for card application funnels, which makes it a competitor for the card referral pace rather than a channel, plus a scatter of search-driven affiliates. Names that circulate as supposed Miles blogs, Peso Hacks, and Card Bravo could not be verified as existing at all. I treat both as non-entities until shown otherwise. The why is pure economics, and it is worth being precise about. Union Bank pays about 4,000 pesos in gifts per approved referred cardholder. RCBC pays up to 1,800 pesos. Singapore bounties run somewhere around 150 to 350 Singapore dollars or more per approved card, an estimate from the earlier volume, but the order of magnitude is not in doubt. Nobody can live on Philippine card bounties, so nobody does. No professional class formed, hence no authority. The slot is vacant, and vacancy cuts both ways. Cheap to claim, expensive to hold, because whoever claims it must fund the market education a Mile Lion does for free. The tier most likely to grow into that slot is on TikTok, which reaches 81.8% of Philippine adults and hosts the impulse deal creator culture Filipinos call Budol. 2 micro-specialists stand out. Jax Rays produces Mabuhay Miles redemption strategies and cheapest earn via card content. Ivy Bermejo walks audiences through BPI points to Mabuhay conversions with unusual transparency about redemption costs. Neither publishes follower counts in anything I could source, and per video engagement runs in the high hundreds. A Jax also appears in community discussion as a lead card expertise figure inside KKB, probably, but not confirmably, the same person, and I label that an inference. The tier is thin today, but it has exactly the shape of the people who become authorities when a category arrives, and elevating them costs almost nothing at Philippine rates. The mass travel tier matters later, not first. The Poor Traveler, Yash Diamond and Van Carlos, publishing since 2010, is the canonical pre-trip search result for Filipino travelers, at roughly 1.1 million Facebook likes, 272,000 YouTube subscribers, and 132,000 on Instagram. Its DNA is do-it-yourself budget itineraries. Its identity is allergic to anything that costs the reader money. It monetizes on affiliate terms with the online travel agencies. That profile makes it the single most valuable travel media partner in the country, as a content and search collaborator on per-conversion terms, never as a hype channel. Personal finance YouTube offers Nicole Alba, at around 475 to 484,000 subscribers per third-party trackers, with a low upload cadence, a pure voice style, and a pre-affluence audience. Someday the right vehicle for a your first card-in make-a-turn explainer, but not a launch channel. Charm de Leon, at around 250 to 258,000 subscribers, with a professionalized sponsorship pipeline through her own agency, is the more product comparison-friendly of the two. Then there are the two enormous accounts an entrant should leave alone, and the reasons are instructive. Chinky Tan commands 6.6 million Facebook followers and over 2 million on YouTube, and his entire catechism is anti-debt. Get out of Udang, meaning get out of debt. A Miles pitch built on credit card spend fights his message head-on, at celebrity prices. Deprioritize. Peso Sense, at roughly 3.97 million likes, is not an influencer at all. It is the Philippine Financial Freedom Campaign of the Commission on Filipinos Overseas, a government financial literacy program for overseas Filipino workers, famous for its structured savings challenges, the IPON challenges, IPON being the Tagalog word for saving up. You cannot buy a government campaign and should not try. What its scale tells you is where overseas worker money culture lives and what format it speaks. A fact for the narrative shelf, someday an IPON challenge but in Miles framing, a savings challenge denominated in Miles, not a line in the media plan. Paizo Fair, similarly, is not one channel but a fragmented ecosystem of deal pages and groups, at 25 to 76,000 followers each, whose audiences mobilize overnight for 1 peso Paizo Fair seats. Useful syndication outlets for a deal feed eventually, mindset conversion projects always. The economics tie the map together. Published rate cards from late 2025 and early 2026 put Philippine macro creators at 50 to 80,000 pesos per post, and micro creators at 5 to 15,000, roughly 3 to 6 times cheaper than Singapore at comparable tiers. A marketing peso buys several times more sourced reach here, and that is precisely the trap. Each impression also monetizes at a fraction of Singapore's spend per user, so reach bought as reach is money burned. The proof that the right model exists is Klook's Creator program, which counts more than 3,000 Philippine creators, about 12% of its global creator base, working for per-booking commission rather than flat fees. Per-conversion creator economics demonstrably work in Philippine travel, at scale, today. What this means for HeyMax. The map shows 2 doors, 1 vacancy, a rising micro-tier, a mass tier for later, and 2 giants to respectfully avoid. Every feature of it rewards an entrant that arrives as a tool and a business partner, and punishes one that arrives as an advertiser. The one organic HeyMax mention in the country came from being useful, free, and discoverable, which is, conveniently, the cheapest strategy available. How to sequence it, what each door costs, and the one rule that can never be broken, that is the next chapter. Chapter 17, Working the Map. Everything on the influencer map divides into 2 categories: what costs nothing and can start now, and what costs money and must wait for a product Filipinos can actually use. The whole discipline of working the map is refusing to blur that line. Activation before entry buys reach that cannot redeem, and worse, it spends credibility in communities with long memories, in a market whose scar tissue I cataloged 2 chapters ago. So the sequence is pre-positioning now, activation only on entry, and one rule that holds under all conditions. Never astroturf the one community that would never forgive it. Begin with the caveat that governs the rest, because it is not a formality. Every paid phase below assumes the product actually ships with Philippine coverage, earn mechanics that work for BPI, Union Bank, RCBC, Metrobank, and Security Bank cardholders, and transfer paths a Manila resident can execute. Without that, as the research file put it bluntly, none of these channels have anything true to say. Influence in this market is testimony. The communities that matter, the deal screenshot culture of Kaskasan Buddies, or KKB, and the data point threads of the Philippine credit card subreddit, run on verifiable first-person experience. A creator asked to praise a product their audience cannot open is being asked to lie in front of the people who trust them most. Nothing downstream works if that foundation is missing, which is why the paid phases wait for entry, and only the free phase runs today. That free phase, call it phase 0, is quiet mapping, with no spend and no announcements. Join KKB and the credit cards subreddit as observers. Catalog the 20 most cited card tactics, the annual fee waiver scripts, the approval data points, the conversion rate complaints. Shortlist 10 to 15 TikTok micro-specialists of the Jax Rays and Ivy Bermejo type, and get indicative rates, which at the micro tier should land between 5 and 15,000 pesos a post. This costs nothing and sharpens the entry model regardless of the decision. The community canon is the syllabus for any future education program. The newbie who computed 750,000 pesos of spend for one Hong Kong flight, and the quiet defector who wrote, translated from the Taglish, the points are better value increase flyer. They are telling you, verbatim and for free, what the market believes and where its loyalties already lean. There is even an accidental head start. HeyMax's Manila support hires, 200 applicants deep, are building a bench of product-familiar Filipino staff without a single strategy document asking them to. Phase 1, credibility seeding, begins roughly 2 months before a launch, and its centerpiece is KKB, approached as a business partner and never as a media buy. This distinction is the chapter's most practical point. KKB is professionalizing. It has an app, a chief executive, and since March of 2026, a formal partnership with the Card Association, the CCAP. It will want money, exclusives for its members, and because its CCAP relationship binds it to the issuing banks, nothing that antagonizes them. The right shape is a commercial alliance, an exclusive member promo at launch, a co-branded Kaskasan Miles education series, Swipe to Miles in the group's own idiom, ambassador arrangements with its leading contributors, and revenue terms tied to conversions rather than impressions. And the deal must be designed against its own principal risk, the one I flagged on the map. KKB already has an app that does deals and rewards, and a shallow partnership is effectively a paid tutorial in cloning the Miles feed. Mutual dependency and term exclusivity are not nice-to-haves here. They are the difference between renting a channel and training a competitor. The Reddit strategy in the same phase is the opposite of a deal, because there is no deal to be had. The subreddit is unbuyable. It is only earnable, and HeyMax has already earned there once. The October 2024 thread citing HeyMax's site as a free merchant category code lookup database is the template, scaled down to a single data point. The move is to build genuinely free tools the community would want anyway. Philippine card-to-miles comparison tables, transfer time trackers, an honest earn rate database spanning the 17 pesos per mile best case to the 116 pesos worst, and then let the subreddit discover them. No seeded posts, no employee accounts asking innocent questions, no referral links ever. The standing rule deserves its own sentence because everything else in this playbook survives a mistake, and this does not. A single detected astroturfing attempt closes the Reddit door permanently, and with it, the cheapest credibility channel in the country. Alongside the tools, retain 5 to 10 micro-specialists on commission plus small retainers, rather than one-off posts. Continuity reads as conviction, and at Philippine rates, the entire phase costs less than one Singapore macro campaign. Phase 2, from launch to about 6 months after, is travel mass distribution. The poor traveler comes first, on its own terms. Co-produced content in its native format, this itinerary and miles modules on its budget guides, a how-to flight to Japan on points from Manila explainer, on affiliate terms comparable to what Klook and Agoda already pay it, with editorial independence, and a product that is genuinely free for readers. Its 15-year budget traveler identity is the asset. Any pitch that smells like costing readers money forfeits it. Second, clone the mechanic that already works. Klook's Creator program proves that more than 3,000 Philippine creators will produce travel content for promo codes, per conversion commission, and annual awards. A HeyMax creators program for the Philippines copies that format outright and prices to poach from Klook's bench, which is easier than it sounds, because Philippine creators stack income streams out of necessity, and an always-on affiliate program is additive to their Klook earnings, not a replacement. Third, syndicate the deal feed through the Paizo Fair pages and groups. Their audiences are peso-first and mobilize in hours, so give them deals, not doctrine. The Miles education comes later or never, and the traffic is cheap either way. Phase 3 waits for proof. The mainstream personal finance tier, Nicole Alba's near 500,000 subscribers, Charm de Leon's agency-managed 250,000, runs on social proof, not mechanics, and activating it before real Filipinos have flown on transferred miles produces content with nothing true at its center. The trigger is redemption stories, actual my first free flight narratives from identifiable users. Only then do those integrations land, framed for audiences that skew pre-affluent, free flights from spend you already make, never spend more, and never get another card. Chinky Tan stays off the plan unless an overseas worker flights home story can someday be told in language compatible with his anti-debt catechism, and the honest answer is that day may never come. The peso sense lesson from the map applies here as narrative rather than channel. The IPON challenge format, the structured savings challenge that overseas worker Facebook already loves, IPON being the Tagalog word for saving up, can be borrowed as a savings challenge denominated in flights home, without touching the government page that made it famous. 3 standing rules run across all phases. Never drop referral links on Reddit, worth repeating, because the temptation recurs every quarter. Treat KKB's admins as business partners with contracts, not as a media buy with a rate card. And measure everything on per-conversion economics, because the Philippines' low flat rates are a standing invitation to overbuy reach that cannot yet redeem, the map's central trap, restated as accounting. It is worth naming how different this is from the prior volumes. In Singapore, HeyMax could ride an existing authorities audience. Mile Lion coverage did real work in the company's early traction story. In Hong Kong, the sequencing ran through a flagship partner and visibility-first execution. The Philippines offers neither an authority to ride nor a flagship media moment to buy. The map has 2 earnable doors, a vacant slot, and a creator bench that must be grown rather than rented. That is slower. It is also, at these prices, astonishingly cheap. The entire pre-entry program costs approximately nothing, and the entire first paid phase costs less than a single Singapore campaign. What this means for HeyMax, stated as commitments and falsifiers. The commitments: start phase 0 now, since it is free and informative under every scenario. Adopt the AstroTurf ban as written policy before anyone is tempted, rather than after. And release no influencer budget until a Philippine product scope is signed. Testimony requires something true to testify about. The falsifiers. If KKB ships a serious Miles or Deals feed of its own before a partnership is struck, the Phase 1 anchor flips from channel to competitor, and this playbook loses its centerpiece. If a seeding attempt is ever detected on the credit card subreddit, the earnable door closes and stays closed. If the micro-specialist bench professionalizes under someone else's program, Klook deepening, or AirAsia rewards building its own creator machine, the cheap talent this plan assumes gets poached in reverse. And if the product never ships Philippine coverage, then the map stays what it is today. A map, accurate and unused. Chapter 18, the Conglomerate Question. The partner question in the Philippines is really a conglomerate question, and the conglomerate question resolves to Gokongwei. The only house in the country that has wired an airline, a retail empire, a fuel brand, a digital bank, and a coalition currency into one loyalty stack, with SM as the open but tankerless alternative and Ayala as a pile of fragments. But the same integration that makes Gokongwei the best possible partner also makes it the likeliest cloner, which is why the deal shape matters as much as the partner choice. This chapter argues both halves, why the triangle collapses to one corner, and why that corner has to be approached with a joint venture structure rather than a vendor contract. The framing comes from the Hong Kong volume. HeyMax's one genuinely successful market entry ran through an institutional issuance network, Crip's business-to-business merchant and bank relationships, plus Octopus and Visa as anchors, rather than a consumer land grab. The Philippine translation exercise is therefore specific. Who is the Crip and who is the Octopus? Philippine consumer life is organized around three conglomerate ecosystems: SM under the CF family, JG Summit and Robinsons under the Gokongweis, and Ayala, and each runs its own loyalty stack, so the candidates enumerate themselves. Take SM first, because it is more interesting than its reputation. The SM Advantage Card, SMAC, is the country's biggest retail reward system at 10.7 million members, roughly doubled since 2020, spanning the SM Store, the supermarkets and hypermarkets, Ace Hardware, and hundreds of retail brands. Historically, it has been a textbook closed loop. Earn inside SM, burn inside SM. Then, within 7 months, it signed 2 external bridges, a points-to-miles partnership with Mabuhay Miles in August of 2024, and in March of 2025, a 2-way point conversion with AirAsia Rewards, signed at SM Retail's own headquarters. That second deal is the single most important SM fact in this book. The most insular retail program in the country accepted an external points exchange partner and chose a foreign airline platform to do it. SM is running a de facto open points exchange strategy without a platform to orchestrate it, which is close to a written invitation for an aggregator. And yet SM cannot anchor an entry because it owns none of the other pieces. No airline, no wallet at SMAC scale, and a bank affiliation, BDO, that is institutionally insular and busy devaluing its own transfer currency, cutting its Amex conversions to 2-to-1 from July of 2026. The exclusivity terms of the AirAsia bridge were not disclosed, which I flag as an honest unknown. If that deal is exclusive in the wrong ways, the SM door is narrower than it looks. SM offers reach without travel credibility, the expansion partner of record, not the foundation. Ayala is the opposite failure mode, assets without integration. It holds the strongest financial services pieces in the triangle, BPI, and, through Globe, a parent stake in GCash, yet it runs its loyalty as fragments. And Ayala Mall's Zing app for mall points, BPI rewards as bank points, and Globe rewards as telco points that convert roughly 1-to-1 into money spendable through GCash. No unified Ayala currency exists. The pieces interoperate only through gift card-style bridges. Fragmentation is an opening for exactly HeyMax's product. A neutral aggregation layer is most valuable to a house whose programs do not talk to each other, but it is an opening for a later conversation, not an anchor, because Ayala has no airline, and because GCash's own ambitions cut against any group-level deal. One wrinkle deserves note because it will matter later in this chapter. When BPI absorbed Robinsons Bank in January of 2024, the Gokongwei Group took its stake in BPI above 10%, while Ayala retained control. The two houses are now co-invested at the bank level. Conglomerate walls in the Philippines are real, but they have at least one bridge across them, and a neutral platform is the natural thing to walk across it. Which brings us to the Gokongwei stack and the reasons it is not a close call. Go Rewards is the group's coalition program, born from merging Robinsons Rewards with Cebu Pacific's GetGo, the same GetGo whose forced migration produced the scar tissue quotes of the graveyard chapter, absorbed at 1-to-1, with each point pegged at 1 peso. Today the coalition spans Cebu Pacific, more than 2,000 Robinsons retail stores, and Caltex fuel stations, with a Union Bank co-brand card feeding points in. 2 features distinguish it from every other program in the country. First, it is the only door to the largest domestic carrier. Cebu Pacific has no separate loyalty program. Its loyalty layer simply is Go Rewards, so access to Cebu Pacific redemption runs through this one relationship and nowhere else. Second, and this is the detail I keep returning to, the group made its own currency semi-liquid through its own bank. GoTime lets users redeem Go Rewards points as cash at 80 centavos per point, up to 1,000 points a day, even though Go Rewards' own terms say points are not convertible to cash. That is loyalty as growth engine thinking, a conglomerate deliberately giving its points a cash floor, and it exists nowhere else in the Philippines. GoTime itself supplies the precedent that makes the whole thesis credible. It is a joint venture between the Gokongwei Group and Time, a foreign fintech. Proof that this house, uniquely among the three, has the habit of partnering with foreign fintechs rather than merely procuring from them. The results are instructive in both directions. 7.8 million customers by its third anniversary in late October of 2025, short of its 9 million target, with community coverage by the middle of 2026 citing around 10 million customers and 53 billion pesos in deposits. Figures differ by date across sources, and I note that rather than resolve it. Customer acquisition costs run below $5 by riding Robinson's retail floors. And it still lost 3.44 billion pesos in 2024, widening from the prior year, the entry economics chapter's lesson, embodied. Cheap acquisition does not fix thin per-user revenue. A partner that already knows this is a better partner. It prices loyalty economics realistically. Now hold the coalition up against what it lacks. Go Rewards points buy Cebu Pacific seats and groceries and fuel, and reach no full-service airline, no foreign program, nothing aspirational. It is a cash-floored, utility-rich currency with no ceiling. Max Miles is precisely the missing layer, a travel transfer top on an ecosystem that already solved the floor. The architecture writes itself, and the research verdict states it cleanly. Anchor on a two-way Max Miles, and Go Rewards bridge surfaced inside GoTime's app, which on day one gives Max Miles an instant cash floor at 80 centavos and instant Cebu Pacific utility. The two things no foreign points app in this market could otherwise claim, with Union Bank as the first bank feed, given its co-brand ties and multi-airline conversion muscle, and Mabuhay Miles as the first transfer-out partner, inside Philippine Airlines window before it joins the oneworld alliance. In the Hong Kong mapping, CRIP becomes GoTime and Go Rewards, Visa card linking becomes Union Bank, and Octopus later becomes the Beep card, which is the next chapter's business. That leaves the cloner problem, which is not a footnote but the central negotiating fact. Gokongwei has the currency, the bank, the airline, and the retail floors. What it lacks is the airline partnership web and the transfer hub product, and those are buildable, or worse, buyable, since Ascenda already supplies exactly that capability business to business, and already runs a Mabuhay Hotel-earned storefront through Caligo. A shallow commercial deal with this group is research and development you pay them to conduct on you. The Time precedent points at the answer. The Gokongweis did not hire Time as a vendor. They built a joint venture with it, and that structure, equity-linked, multi-year, exclusive, is what protected the foreign partner's position. HeyMax should accept nothing thinner. A JV-style arrangement with exclusivity terms, trading margin for a moat, exactly because the anchor is also the likeliest competitor. What this means for HeyMax as commitments and falsifiers. The commitments: negotiate at conglomerate level before making any consumer noise, since the deal is the entry. Structure for exclusivity, even at real cost in economics. And hold SM as the proven open second partner, and Ayala as the aggregation story for later, walked across the BPI bridge if needed. The falsifiers are specific and watchable. If Go Rewards signs a foreign airline transfer bridge on its own, a Go Rewards to Mabuhay or Go Rewards to Asia Miles conversion appearing without HeyMax, that is the clone beginning, and the anchor thesis is dying in public. If GoTime's loss curve forces a retreat from reward spending, the cash floor that makes the bridge valuable weakens. If the exclusivity in the SMAC and AirAsia deal turns out to foreclose the SM fallback, the triangle loses a corner. And if Gokongwei simply declines exclusivity, the discipline is to walk away. because a non-exclusive deal with the one house most capable of copying you is not an entry strategy. It is a tutorial with your name on the invoice. Chapter 19. Transport Daily Needs and the Rank 10. Below the conglomerate question sits the rest of the partner stack: transit, wallets, fuel, groceries, telcos, and the issuing banks, and the discipline this chapter argues for is ranking rather than accumulating. Partnership pipelines die of enthusiasm. Every logo looks additive, every meeting feels like progress, and 18 months later, a 30-person company has 40 conversations and no architecture. So this chapter does three things. It walks the remaining terrain honestly, including the pieces that look valuable and are not. It compresses the whole book's partner analysis into a ranked 10 with deal shapes. And it states the deprioritizations explicitly, because in a market this crowded with loyalty furniture, what you refuse defines the strategy as much as what you sign. Start with the asset that rhymes with Hong Kong, the beep card. AF Payments, the operator, is a joint venture of the AF Consortium, Ayala crossed with First Pacific's Metro Pacific, running Metro Manila's contactless transit card. It has a new president and chief executive as of April of 2025, Remigio Carpio Jr., and a partnership with GHL Systems that is extending beep acceptance across retail payment terminals nationwide. The shape is unmistakably octopus, a transit card pushing into retail acceptance, exactly the earn anchor that worked in the Hong Kong entry. But the analogy has a hole in the middle, and honesty requires stating it. Octopus came with decades of trust, near-universal penetration, and a rewards history. The beep card publishes no card count. I could not verify one this session, and I flagged the gap, and it has no loyalty program at all. That makes it greenfield rather than a conversion negotiation. Earn max miles on your commute would be the beep card's first loyalty proposition ever. Greenfield cuts both ways. There is no incumbent rate sheet to fight and no legacy program to displace, and there is also no proven member behavior to buy, no evidence that beep holders want points at all. It is a genuine opportunity at the right stage of an entry, and that stage is not the first one. Next, the wallet question, settled here as policy: rent GCash, never anchor on it. The case for renting is real and specific. GCash's 94 million registered users, with 39.1 million monthly actives as the honest read, make it the country's default financial surface, and its GLife mini program mall already hosts a foreign-operated rewards layer. Alipay Plus's rewards program runs inside GCash as a mini-app, claimable vouchers and all. Max Miles inside GLife is therefore not a category break. It has an on-point precedent. The case against anchoring is equally specific. GCash monetizes its surface aggressively and would extract gatekeeper economics, revenue share, data terms, no exclusivity. Its own ambitions, with Globe Rewards sitting nearby in the family, cut against hosting a rival travel currency indefinitely. And the surface itself carries regulatory risk, demonstrated when the central bank, the BSB, forced GLife's gaming access shut in August of 2025. A channel that can be switched off by a regulator or repriced by its owner is distribution to rent at scale-up time, never a foundation. Maya, the challenger wallet bank, is the more interesting conversation, profitable in 2025, 10.7 million bank customers, and structurally hungrier to differentiate. But the Maya chapter of this book already named the problem. It is building its own Miles ecosystem, which makes it simultaneously the highest upside distribution deal outside the conglomerates and the most dangerous partner to educate. The daily needs layer resolves quickly once you stop admiring its size. Fuel, Caltex is already inside Go Rewards. One of the three majors comes bundled with the anchor, while Petron's Value Card and Shell's Geo Plus are closed loops with no travel affinity. Groceries, pharmacy, convenience, Purigold perks, Mercury Drug's Suki card at a point per 200 pesos, and 7-Eleven's Click, spelled CLIQQ, at roughly 17 million members. All closed-loop, travel-blind programs, later-stage earn partners once a consumer product exists, entry material never. Telcos, Globe Rewards converts roughly 1-to-1 into money spendable through GCash, a big liquid points base adjacent to the wallet question. Smart routes its consumer fintech energy through Maya, and no substantive Smart Rewards coalition surfaced at all. Grab has answered its own question. The Grab Coins rebrand of November 2025, 6-month expiry, no airline bridge, was a retreat from aspirational loyalty region-wide and a platform that builds rather than hosts. And the travel platform layer requires no negotiation whatsoever, which is precisely its value. Klook at up to 25%, Agoda at up to 20%, and Trip.com and Foodpanda already sit on HeyMax's Philippine visible storefront as verified earn merchants. The online travel agencies are inventory HeyMax brings to a Philippine partner, not partnerships it must win. The issuer bench was surveyed in the card game chapter. Here it needs only its first wave logic. The conversion pipes to Mabuhay already exist across 7 or 8 banks, and they are uniformly clunky, 5-to-1 and 8-to-1 rates, roughly 7-day crediting, which is exactly the experience gap that instant transfers exploit. The first wave is 4 names. Union Bank, the Innovation Bank, with conversions into multiple airline currencies, and the Cebu Pacific co-brand feeding Go Rewards, the closest Philippine analog to HeyMax's Singapore Bank Web. RCBC, the one bank that already thinks natively in miles, running an explicit Air Miles program with a 1-to-1 preferred tier. Security Bank, a 4-airline conversion menu already live, partnership open, with MUFG holding roughly a fifth of it. East West, holder of the country's only KrisFlyer co-brand, upgraded in September of 2024, a natural ally for a platform whose deepest Singapore partner is KrisFlyer, and a direct line to the one Philippine audience already fluent in a foreign currency. Assembled the rank 10. Number 1, the Gokongwei Group and Go Rewards the anchor, a coalition-level, 2-way max miles bridge shaped as a joint venture with exclusivity per the previous chapter. Number 2, Go Time Bank, the specific door into that anchor. An in-app earn and redeem surface that gives Max Miles a cash floor and 7.8 million rewards, native users. Number 3, Philippine Airlines, PAL, and Mabuhay Miles, the first transfer out. A rate sheet negotiation inside the Amadeus replatforming and the window before oneworld, closed before 2027 raises PAL's leverage. Number 4, Union Bank, the first bank feed. A points to Max Miles pipe plus a card-linked earn pilot, riding its co-brand and conversion muscle. Number 5, SM and the SM Advantage Card, SMAC, the second wave retail base. A SMAC to Max Miles bridge on the exact template of its AirAsia 2-way deal, bringing 10.7 million members of earn. Number 6, Maya, a time-box distribution deal hosting a Max Miles rail, pursued only if its native miles build stalls and never as the party you educate. Number 7, RCBC, the fast follower issuer. Its Air Miles 1-to-1 tier replumbed as a Max Miles feed. Number 8, Security Bank, the third issuer. One more line on a conversion menu that already lists 4 airlines. Number 9, AF Payments and the Beep Card, the octopus move. Greenfield Transit earn, miles on your commute, sequenced after a consumer product exists. And number 10, East West Bank, the KrisFlyer house. Co-marketing to the most miles-literate cardholder base in the country. The explicit deprioritizations, with reasons stated once and flatly. GCash as anchor, rent later per above. BDO, institutionally insular, devaluing its own transfer currency and reachable only through SM anyway. AirAsia move, under a regulatory cloud since the cease and desist order of May 2025, and AirAsia Rewards is a rival for the very partner slots HeyMax wants. It already took SMAC. Tonic, Uno, Union Digital, and Maribank. Respectively, in break-heaven survival mode, thin on rewards, reachable only via parent, and locked in Shopee's closed loop, no anchor capacity anywhere in the digital bank tail. Grab and Smart, the one builds rather than hosts, the other has no program. Ankas and Joyride, no loyalty rails surfaced and absence claim lightly searched. The standalone grocery and pharmacy programs, closed loop and travel blind. And Klook, Traveloka, and Agoda already affiliate inventory, valuable precisely because they require nothing. What this means for HeyMax is that the list is not a menu but a dependency graph. Ranks 1 through 4 constitute the entry architecture itself, the anchor, its door, the aspirational transfer route, and the first feed. If the top 3 fail, there is no Philippine entry to sequence, only the diaspora corridor this book keeps returning to. Ranks 5 through 8 are how a working architecture scales. Ranks 9 and 10 are texture, real value, wrong stage. A 30-person company gets perhaps 3 serious institutional negotiations a year. This chapter's argument is that their order is not a matter of taste. Spend them at the top of the list, in sequence, or watch the accumulation instinct spend them everywhere and build nothing. Chapter 20, Should HeyMax Enter the Philippines? The verdict comes in 3 parts, and I will state all 3 before defending any of them. No, HeyMax should not launch a consumer product in the Philippines now. Yes, it should do 3 cheap things immediately: take the business-to-consumer beachhead, deepen the diaspora corridor it has already half-built, and pre-position for the market it will eventually want. And full entry should wait on measurable triggers, with Philippine Airlines, PAL, acceding to the oneworld alliance in 2027 as the loudest clock in the room. This is the ending the whole volume has been earning. Not now is a legitimate verdict, and intellectual honesty beats narrative momentum. First, the no, compressed from 20 chapters. On the demand side, the Miles viable segment is 1 to 3 million Filipinos by my estimate, inside a nation of 115 million, where 58.4% of families are low income, and where a 25,000-mile award implies 750,000 to 1.25 million pesos of card spend. Cashback and Paizo fares rationally win for the majority, and the community already knows it, from the newbie computing 750,000 pesos of spend for one Hong Kong flight, to the quiet defector concluding, translated from the Taglish, that the points are better value in KrisFlyer. Per card annual spend runs around 110 to 135,000 pesos, an estimate, and roughly 1/10 of a Singapore Miles chaser, so the same engine gets 1/10 of the fuel. Marketplace affiliate math fails outright at Philippine ticket sizes. A typical order funds 20 to 35 miles. The scar tissue is real and named: GetGo, CD's exit, the BPIN Delta card, GCash's glitch cycle, and a foreign app holding miles enjoys zero statutory trust scaffolding, since the consumer protection law covers e-money and not loyalty points. And on the supply side sits HeyMax's own expansion ledger, which I treat as load-bearing. A roughly 30-person company still digesting Hong Kong, with Australia a shell after nearly 3 years, Japan and Taiwan promised by the end of 2026 and unshipped as of August. And Indonesia, not the Philippines, wired into the production sign-up code. Every entrant precedent says Philippine acquisition is cheap and Philippine monetization is brutal. Tonic took 4 to 5 years to reach break-even, and GoTime lost 3.44 billion pesos in 2024 despite acquisition costs under $5. A standalone consumer launch at 2026 numbers repeats that curve with less capital and a 5th concurrent commitment. Second, the yes, 3 moves whose economics work at today's numbers, precisely because none of them is a consumer launch. The beachhead, enter business-to-consumer, powering miles for a partner rather than acquiring Filipinos directly, the Gokongwei architecture of Chapter 18, a 2-way Max Miles and Go Rewards bridge surfaced inside GoTime, with Union Bank as the first bank feed. Partnered distribution holds acquisition under $5, issuer-funded earn rides interchange that is fatter here than in Singapore or in capped Australia, and the entry rides someone else's trust, which the Go time versus tonic contrast says is the difference between traction and attrition. The corridor, this is the volume's quiet discovery, because it already exists. Mabuhay Miles has been a live 1-to-1 Max Miles transfer partner since late May of 2026, scoped by PAL, verbatim, exclusively for our members in Hong Kong and Singapore. and framed by PAL's own head of loyalty as serving Southeast Asia-based members. Nobody, possibly including HeyMax, has named what this is: a Philippine strategy that serves Filipinos where they are affluent. There are 2.16 million overseas Filipino workers inside a diaspora of 10 million or more. Personal remittances ran $39.6 billion in 2025. The flights home are real and constant. Marketing the corridor explicitly to Hong Kong and Singapore Filipinos, spend where you live, fly home on it, monetizes the diaspora at zero regulatory exposure, and teaches HeyMax the Mabuhay relationship from the inside. The pre-positioning, everything from Chapter 17's Phase 0. The relationship with Kaskasan Buddies, or KKB, opened as a business conversation. The free tools Reddit can discover. The council opinion confirming the closed-loop exemption under Circular 1166. And Mabuhay depth negotiated now, while PAL still needs partner-sourced earn volume more than partners need PAL. After the oneworld accession in 2027, that leverage inverts. Third, the triggers measurable, so that weight cannot rot into drift. Full consumer entry clears when 5 conditions hold. 1. Unique affluent cardholders reach 3 to 5 million, with per card spend approaching 250,000 pesos, on 12% annual card growth and roughly 30% receivables growth, plausibly a condition for 2028 to 2030. 2. A devaluation-proof redemption anchor exists. Either PAL demonstrates stable award pricing through the oneworld transition, or HeyMax secures Philippine origin transfer access to foreign programs, so that Filipino users are never hostage to Mabuhay's history. 3. At least one anchor issuer is signed before launch, not after. 4. A distribution partner, coalition, wallet, or bank holds blended acquisition under about $5. 5. The closed-loop legal opinion is in hand, with max miles kept non-spendable at third parties. 5 boxes. When they tick, enter. Until they tick, the answer stands. What not to do deserves its own paragraph, because the failure modes are all attested. Do not launch standalone consumer at 2026 numbers, that is the tonic curve. Do not announce and fail to ship. The Australia pattern, a launch that produced 0 App Store ratings in nearly 3 years, would here burn the one asset the Philippines offers, a genuinely blank slate. Do not astroturf the Philippine credit card subreddit ever, the door closes once. Do not anchor on GCash, rent it later, as Chapter 19 argued. Do not let max miles become spendable at third-party merchants in the Philippines, which flips the regulatory perimeter from exempt to licensed. And do not import the traction claim habits documented in the Singapore volume into a market whose burns are named and whose skepticism is trained. The recycled number ladder that reads as sloppy in Singapore would read as familiar scam-shaped in Manila. Now the falsifiers, stated so this volume can be proven wrong. If Maya finishes its native miles ecosystem and signs the anchors, a deep Mabuhay lock, a coalition bridge, then waiting was forfeiting and might not now cost HeyMax the seat. The window closes from Maya's side, and Maya Black's 40,000 cards are the gauge to watch. If Gokongwei builds its own transfer network, watch for Go Rewards adding foreign airline bridges without HeyMax, the anchor architecture dies. If Mabuhay devalues again without notice, the destination currency loses the credibility the corridor depends on. If card growth stalls or receivables flat, the compounding that makes waiting rational stops, and the honest revision is not later but never. If the central bank, the BSB, redraws the e-money perimeter around closed-loop points, the regulatory ease this thesis leans on evaporates. If Japan and Taiwan fail to ship by the end of 2026, my capacity judgment hardens. If instead HeyMax executes a real Philippine consumer launch in the next 2 years and it works, then this book was wrong, and I have told you exactly what evidence would show it. And one admission: the corridor's actual transfer volumes are unobservable from outside. If the Hong Kong to Singapore Mabuhay pipe is carrying nothing, the diaspora premise is weaker than I have argued. Which leaves the synthesis 3 volumes have been building toward. Hong Kong asked whether HeyMax can win, and answered. A clear second loyalty platform behind Cathay by the end of 2027 if visibility-first sequencing executes, with falsifiers led by Cathay repricing the one-to-one. Singapore asked whether it can keep what it won and answered, trust first at home, with falsifiers led by HeyMax's own conduct. I noted then that both volumes fail at the same point, the credibility of the one-to-one. The Philippines asked a prior question, should it even enter, and answered not now, with 3 cheap yesies. Read together, the 3 verdicts locate the open loyalty thesis precisely. An independent transferable currency needs 3 things, 1 per volume. A distribution wedge against strong incumbents, which Hong Kong tested. A promise whose issuer's conduct sustains belief, which Singapore tested. And a market whose spend can actually fund the aspiration, which the Philippines tests and fails for now. The spine is the same everywhere. In Hong Kong, the threat to the one-to-one was Cathay repricing it. In Singapore, it was HeyMax cheapening it. In the Philippines, the threat is subtler than either. The one-to-one can be perfectly honest and still not matter because the destination currency carries devaluation scars and the median wallet cannot reach the redemption. Credibility, it turns out, is necessary in every market and sufficient in none of them. The promise also needs a program worth landing in, and a spend base rich enough to take off from. What this means for HeyMax, one last time, the Philippines is not a market to enter now. It is a market to be unmistakably ready for, with the beachhead built, the corridor humming, the KKB relationship warm, the Mabuhay depth negotiated before 2027 changes the price, and the 5 triggers watched like instruments. Readiness costs almost nothing. Unreadiness, when the triggers fire and Maya or Gokongwei is already sitting in the seat, would cost the country. And there are 10 million Filipinos abroad who are already, quietly, the first Philippine market HeyMax ever had.